right thought and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. And I'd also pray for a quick resolution to what's going on in Ukraine. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, first call out to the public. Anyone wish to address the board at this time?
Carla Adams, Ward 4. This is in regards to the Board of Health. In December, I sent out an email, December 8th, explaining the situation that I had FOIA'd the Community Health Agency and was denied. I put in an appeal. In my appeal, I was still denied, saying that the office doesn't have records pertaining to the isolation of COVID-19 or proof that there is a pandemic at that time. I did then receive a paper from HHS which stated completely there is not been an isolation of COVID-19, and yet the Board of Health decided to give Rebecca Burns another year contract and a raise, and then themselves raises. And here today I have an FDA paper that admits PCR test was developed without isolated samples. And it goes on and on, it's 80 pages. There is an investigation actively going on with regards to this, and I have sent out emails to everybody, I believe that was in here at that time, that disregarded my email, my paperwork from HHS which says COVID-19 has not been isolated. So we're starting to look at biological weapon and PCR is fraud, and now our hospitals will be investigated. So I just wanted you to know, I hope you take me seriously. This is not a joke. And if I'm asked to remove for repetitive comments, it is only because you refuse to look at the proof. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board at this time?
Kelly Mapes, we'll keep it quick. I just want to talk about the repetitive comment. This really doesn't apply much to this board, but it does apply to the two people that oversee the Board of Health. So it was mentioned at the last Board of Health meeting, or excuse me, Board of Health meeting, that they were going to put into the bylaws that they had the right to remove somebody for obviously being unruly, which is fair, and repetitive comments. Now, repetitive comments for me could be every week until I get the answer I want. I think that that's a violation to me as a citizen. I think I have every right to be at a meeting, and I honestly feel since they've moved that location to the courthouse, I feel that those meetings have been run very tactfully. I commend everyone that goes to it. I think even, we may clap a little bit, sometimes there's a little excitement, but there's nowhere in the bylaws that say we have to be mute. So if you want us to be mute, add the word mute, I'll respect that. But don't threaten to have us thrown out. I think that's just really, I think that's poor policy. And then just on a quick note, so I've contacted 45 district health departments regarding their Medicaid funding. I've been in contact with the state and also at federal level to see if $2,130,000 of money being put into a retirement fund at the health department in the last 3 years is adequate. And I got from all 45 health departments, absolutely not. We have got to come together. I'm going to be a recipient of this money, but I'm still very angry about it. So it's not in good taste. I want you guys to look into that. In all fairness, that's all I'm asking. I want you to show us as citizens how you can put $2 million into somebody's retirement during COVID, all right? And they said it wasn't COVID money. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. And I hope we can all come together and do that in a good manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board at this time? There will be another public comment at the end of the meeting. Seeing none, we'll move along. Consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, correspondence is listed. Any comments on correspondence at this time? There are a couple items on there that we will be covering, such as Mission Square. All right, entertain motion to approve the regular agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Any additions or corrections?
I don't know if this is the time, but I don't believe we're going to be authorizing the Mission Square retirement resolution at this time. We want some clarification on a couple of items, so I don't know if we pull it now or if,
We can pull it now.
all right,
Or, well, maybe we change it to a discussion item.
and that's fine.
Okay. Change to a discussion item. Okay, anything else? With that change, all those in favor of the regular agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Matt, that brings us up to you.
Morning, Board.
Morning.
So I've got my annual report for 2021. I just made a bunch of clip notes. I wasn't really gonna go through the report page for page, if that's okay with the board. And then if there's any additional questions, you know, by all means, we can try and get those answered for you. So, I mainly want to talk about kind of the key things that's been happening in 2021. The first one, Pleasant Lake Drain Petition project. The project was delayed due to availability of certain materials. There were some unforeseen excavating conditions, and the weather was a major factor. It got cold fast, a lot of frost in the ground, so basically the contractor kind of had to halt progress until this spring and things thaw out and get to be better conditions. I've been in close contact with the contractor, so hopefully they'll get right out there as soon as they can and get that one wrapped up. St. Joe Maumee Drain. Petition was filed by Wright Township Board. We do have a tentative Board of Determination hearing scheduled for April 7th. I do encourage the board to attend if they can. We're actually hosting the meeting at the Waldron High School because the actual size of the drainage district, it's 60,000 acres, 3,300 parcels involved. So kind of hard we don't know what to expect as far as a crowd that will show up to this. Just a little background, the St. Joe Maumee Drain's 8 miles long, starting at the Michigan-Ohio state line, south of Territorial Road in Amboy Township. The county portion of the drain extends to Prattville Road. The 8-mile county portion of this drain is just a fraction of the water course. Like I said, it's 60,000 acres, around 3,300 parcels, and there's 9 townships within Hillsdale County that's within the drainage district, so very big one.
Pretty tough to find members to serve on that board.
Yeah, I'm getting there though.
Matt, will you have maps of that proposed district where those parcels are?
It's not really proposed, the district's already there.
Okay, so
We do have maps available of that district.
could you possibly get that emailed out to us?
Sure.
So we can share that as we start our next cycle with our townships?
Sure.
I know Commissioner Leininger and I particularly probably have the majority of that.
Yeah, yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So there are many county drains that outlet into this drain, along with many natural water courses as well. So it's a pretty big drain. We do have a project coming up on Lake Somerset we've been working on. We're still in preliminary planning phases for that. There's some minor seepage on one of the earthen dams out there that we've been monitoring for several years. And it's been recommended in our last inspection report to try and address that. So we've been in communication with the Lake Association And our engineers working on putting together a plan on what we need to do to get that remedied. Lake Leanne, we're still working with them on adjusting some lake level corrections on the original court order. Not a lot of progress going on there, primarily because it's not really a priority issue, so we kind of put it on the back burner, but we're trying to follow through with that. Clark Drain petition, not much to update on this petition. Our engineer is working with a consultant regarding anticipated eagle permits before we proceed any further. Unfortunately, when permits need to be obtained, this drastically slows the process down, so that one's kind of getting pushed back. Bear Lake control structure repairs, I believe I've already touched on this, but the project was a success and completed in April of 2021. We assisted the contractor with several pieces of our equipment and staff, which in return saved considerable amount of expenses for the repair, which was great. It was a very interesting project, something that I've never done before because we had to use a barge to float the equipment across the lake to access the structure, so that was a pretty interesting project. That's pretty much all the cliff notes that I have. Is there anything in particular on the report that any of you have any questions on? Doug?
A couple things. First of all, Matt, can you describe just a little bit, because it's been spoken so much about at the road commission, Circle Drive and the road down there and kind of the possibilities and what needs to happen and so on and so forth?
Yeah, so in order for my office to get involved with that situation, because there's no existing county drain there, I attended the road commission's board meeting, a couple weeks ago, explained the process to establish a new county drain. That's where I could get involved. That's kind of a lengthy process, to be honest with you. That would require, an application from either a series of landowners or a municipality to establish a watershed district. The district has to be established before you can establish a drain. And then once that process has gone through, then there could be an actual petition to establish a new county drain. I have not had any correspondence with anybody regarding wanting to follow through with that process at this time.
What's the basic problem there? The lake level is higher than the...
No, I did some preliminary research on the elevations of all the series of lakes, and I haven't completed that yet, but there is fall from lake to lake to lake. So, it's hard. I shouldn't speculate, but I would say the drainage channel between the two lakes is the first place I would look to see for issues.
Okay. The second question, just on the last couple of days, with all the melting and the rain that we had, Wildwood Drive, what happened out there?
Yeah, so we drove by there Thursday, took a look, saw the road commission was there. Again, unfortunately, I hate telling people this, but there's no county drain there. Not a lot we could do from our office. I talked to a lot of residents out there. What I gather is, of course, the frozen ground, we're getting 100% runoff right now. And it rapidly melted fast. There was some talk of some changes to certain areas of the watershed that was diverting water. I don't really know on that. That was speculation, but very unfortunate situation there. And we saw a lot of that. We went out Thursday and followed up with several calls into our office. It was a mess.
Water where we've never seen it before.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
So my only other question at this moment is, under equipment list.
Yep.
You've got items, 1995, 2010, 03, so on and so forth.
Yep.
How you doing with your equipment? Is there a cycle that replaces what you need? Are some of these older items that are still very useful because you don't use them maybe that much, but when you need them, you need them?
Yeah, so some of the items are kind of old, but like for example, the tree shear attachment that goes on the excavator. It is old, but there's really a couple hydraulic cylinders and, not really much that goes wrong with it. Some of the equipment doesn't get a lot of hours on it, so we can, with proper maintenance, make it last quite a while. As far as the, condition of our equipment, we're in pretty good shape, to be honest with you. Some of it is getting up there in age, but we take good care of it, and I think we're sitting pretty good, really. I don't have any major plans on trying to update any pieces of equipment at this time, so.
Thank you.
Anybody else, any questions?
Matt, I just want to thank you for your response to this. I really appreciate that when I call you, you usually answer. If you don't, you get right back with me. So, it's just part of the overall picture. But I really, really appreciate that very much. And I'm sure any other commission that's contacted you has some similar experience. So that's very refreshing. So thank you.
It's so hard to see all this stuff happening with this weather, and you get out there and there's nothing you can do if there's no county drain, but I try and get with everybody I can and at least give them my opinion on what to do to prevent it next time, or try and guide them in any way we can. I was actually at residence last night in Jonesville. Fire department requested my assistance. Again, no county drain. They didn't know what to do, where to turn. So I was out there with them for several hours last night trying to figure things out. Very unfortunate situation with one particular house out there, which kind of rolls into something I want to touch on. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I've talked with the building inspection, Marty Taylor. I really want to encourage the Board of Commissioners to think about adopting a stormwater management regulations for the county. I've got a copy here. I can send it to you. This is actually from Monroe County. This is something that they've implemented. Talking with the building inspection, Marty Taylor, it helps him, it gives him more leverage, it gives us as a county some guidelines. So when someone wants to build, there's a series of guidelines that they have to follow to make sure that proper drainage is part of that project. We see so many houses, just like this house in Jonesville last night I looked at, that basically the house is built in a hole. The landowners lived there for 8 years. The house was built in '97, so they had no idea. They bought this house, and it's probably the only time this has ever happened. But we had that perfect storm event this last week, and their basement wall collapsed because their house flooded. And I look at it, I really think this is something we should look into. It gives us more leverage as a county, and when permits are pulled, along with those permits, they have to follow these guidelines to make sure proper drainage is implemented into any build. So I'll get this forwarded to you guys just so you can look it over, and we can start talking a little more detail in the future.
Did the Monroe County Board of Commissioners pass that as an ordinance, or would they pass it?
Yeah, I believe it's considered an ordinance, and it has to, I've looked into it before, it's something that the board has to handle.
Okay.
It's really out of my hands to implement this policy.
Could any city or village adopt their own language regarding that?
I don't really know for sure. I assume that's possible. I don't know if any cities or villages have stormwater regulations in Hillsdale County.
I've got a few questions.
Sure.
For Matt.
Sure.
And many of these you and I have already talked about, but I guess the one you touched on some of these other petitions, but I didn't hear anything on the church drain.
Yeah, so I didn't touch on the church drain. There's really not a lot going on with that. That's not a high profile project like some of these other ones. So we've kind of put it on hold for now. Basically what we're looking into is that petition process has already been gone through, deemed necessary. But that would require new easements to add a section of existing drain as county drain. That was unique in the sense that the county drain outlets into a natural water course, so we have no jurisdiction over that water course downstream. So our county drain is threatened to some degree because we can't maintain it. So the idea is to add that several thousand feet of natural water course to the county drain, the Church County drain.
And you mentioned the Bear Lake issue, and I had a customer that lives out there on that. And, you know, we had some discussion this last year as to that dam on Bear Lake actually controls a lot of the lake level on Lake Wilson and Bankers Lake. But neither of those lakes are part of that assessment district. And would it be kind of similar to the same thing as creating a new drainage district to expanding that lake level district to those other two lakes?
I don't know the process for that. I did talk with our legal counsel regarding that situation, and they basically said it's how the court order was set up when they established the legal level. They established a special assessment district. Now, why they didn't include those upper lakes, nobody knows. I think they could have, but they didn't. So, yes, you're right, only Bear Lake, the folks on Bear Lake, even though that control structure is the lower lake, only the folks on Bear Lake are on that special assessment district.
And then a couple other things we talked about. And Commissioners, I don't know if this was on. The one thing that I noticed in Matt's report is when he talks about fund balance on each drains, there's a separate line item for, how was it referred to here?
The revolving tile.
Revolving tile supply. And I was questioning whether that should actually be listed as a drain. And Matt or Aaron can better explain how that works. My concern is if we list it there as a liability somewhere, you know, he gives us a list of those assets, but nowhere do we include in the list of assets that tile supply of $84,000 that's sitting out there at the Drain Commissioner's facility for installment.
Yeah, so that's just how it's historically always been handled, that account. We're currently looking in to see if we should be handling it or keeping that account somewhere else other than in the fund balance. But it does show a negative, because if it didn't, it would reflect on our positive drain account money. So we are looking into that.
And then the one last request that I got for Matt in his office is to work with the IT department to make sure that you get your reports put on the county website on an annual basis, so that it's more readily available and easier for the general public to be able to access and view.
Yeah, and after we talked, we did get them put on last week, I think, right?
That same day. Yeah.
Okay.
Typically, like, how long would the report stay? You just put them on there and leave them on there,
Well,
or?
you know, I look at the county's budget page, and I think we've got 5 or 6 years, you know, of history of that budget out there. So, you know, one thing that speaks volumes to the inflation that we've seen, I think a year ago that revolving tile supply line was in the negative $63,000, and that's in the negative $84,000 this year. So just to show that increase just in that plastic that the Drain Commissioner is seeing, that's a true sign of inflation.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions, comments?
Matt, do we have any lakes left that have control structures that don't have lake level assessment districts? I know Crystal was one of them. I think that's been addressed now. So
Cambria Mill Pond is, I think, the only one we have left that has a legal court-ordered level under my jurisdiction, but no special assessment district.
any plans to address that? And that one's particularly troublesome because road runs over the top of the dam, and so that's
Well, it's a good thing you brought it up. This year, we're up for inspection again. So in years past, the Board of Commissioners would have to assist with the cost associated with the inspection of that structure, because there's no special assessment district to assess those costs. As far as establishing one, that one would be touchy, because very, very few people, I think, would be within that district. But would come as a request to the Board of Commissioners for my department to follow through and establish that.
We happen to have the Cambria Township Supervisor back there. So, Glenn, you have any input, thoughts on that?
It'll be a miracle if that passes inspection sometimes. You know, there's a lot of things going on down there.
It gets inspected every 3 years, and that one's usually pretty decent. We've never really had to do much to it.
What is that cost generally been on the inspections, Matt?
It's not that much. I don't want to say for sure, but it's around $1,000-ish.
And does the county pay all of that, or some of that go to the township as well as?
Historically, the county would pay it.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions? Comments?
Getting back to that Cambria Mill Pond, it's a very touchy situation trying to do anything to improve downstream in our
Yeah.
park.
Yeah.
Every year that little bank keeps getting washed away, and they say, well, you can't do nothing about that, son.
And that's not a, county drain there. The funny thing is, out of 15 lake levels that we control, I believe there's only one that we control the downstream outlet, which does not make sense at all, because we've gotten calls on several of our lakes. Well, there's an issue downstream and it's backing the lake up, and if we have no jurisdiction, we can't do anything about it. But
The drains on the bridge itself, they get plugged up
oh yeah,
so much. The road commission doesn't do a very good job of maintaining that.
yeah, that's a never-ending battle, I'm sure.
There's lots of large oak trees and
Yeah, leaves and yeah.
so that if there's not any kind of damage, that's maybe where we'll be looking at, because it'll be expanding, contracting all through the winter.
Whose responsibility would those drains be? Would that be the road commissioner or you, man?
Road commission.
Yeah,
It's just to drain the water from that
Right.
collects on the bridge.
right. Okay. Any other questions for Matt? Thank you.
Thank you, board.
Yep. Thank you. We do need a motion to accept Matt's report, to put it on file.
Move to accept Drain Commissioner's report.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right, Kathy, you're up.
All right, I guess we'll tackle the Mission Square discussion first. What I want clarification on is whether employee mandatory contributions are pre-tax or post-tax. Dave Holcomb commented this morning that Hillsdale County 30 years ago, when they set it up, they were post-tax. So I just want clarification that is, I do know that's the way Mission Square is treating them as post-tax. And I will say in the adoption agreement, it does not specifically say. So I just want clarification of that we're either going to keep them that way or we're going to change them. So I think this will come back to the next board meeting for adoption. The adoption agreement itself, I don't think there's a problem with it. I think we want clarification of what our expectation is, and that's what we want going forward. I think there's some discussion going to be had about the employee handbook and when employees are eligible to get in, because as you can see in the adoption agreement, there's no waiting period. But I believe it's been stated by union contract, it's an 800-hour waiting period. Dave kind of talked about that, and I thought there was discussion that that's been changed in the employee handbook to a 90-day waiting period, and he'd like to see an hour, not a day, because if you're a part-time employee, hours are different than days. So I think we just need a little clarification on that, so. So those are the two issues I have. That other than that, the adoption agreement essentially is carrying over what we've done before. The reason we're doing it is because with the IRS, you have to go through this process every so many years, and it's time to go through the process. There's probably been some law changes about distributions, eligible distributions, probably through distress, whether it's whatever changes the IRS has made to legal distributions from those plans. Those plans periodically need to be updated, and that's what this plan is going through. The county's not making any changes. It's just a matter of what the IRS, to keep the plans in compliance with IRS rules and regulations. So, so that's kind of, the adoption agreement itself, I think, could be passed today, but I think we want clarification on those two issues first. So, are there any questions?
Well, as I said, it's going to lead to that discussion that we're going to have later on regarding the employee handbook, because the current adoption agreement says employees are eligible immediately to the 401A program. Okay? Our employee handbook says any union contract supersedes it. But to me, we're contradicting ourselves when we say non-union employees, you're eligible right away in the adoption agreement for the 401A. Then we come back to the employee handbook and we say, well, you have to work 800 hours or 90 days or whatever that time limit is. And to me, what you file with the IRS takes precedent over your own personal rules. And so, again, we'll have that discussion when we get to the employee handbook.
Right.
I like the idea that you're eligible right away. I don't care what the paperwork is. I think that's, in today's hiring environment, I think that's a great tool to be able to entice an employee into a business to say, you don't have to wait to start contributing to your retirement, because we have built into that retirement program a 4-year vesting period. You're not vested in any of the county's contribution until after year 1, and you're not fully vested until after the 4th year.
Like you said,
So,
we'll have.
and
further
again, that's no
discussion.
different than the language that was last adopted, that you're immediately
Right, that is not a change.
Yeah.
And I think, again, that clarification of county policy, in reading the employee handbook, I haven't been here for the last 30 years. I don't know what past practice is, but I do know there's a 90-day probationary period versus after 90 days, you're not a probationary period. So is that part of this whole process that as you're a probationary employee, some of these things don't kick in? I will say that I think we have to understand the paperwork involved, and the paperwork involved of putting in a new employee on and not having a human resource department at the county. And so we're doing things as best we can in as correct manner as possible. Let's not make it worse on our current staff if we don't have to. And I would say that this plan, one of the first things I see is that you don't have to be 21 to participate. Most plans I've looked at before, that's the first thing they check, got to be over 21. So already we're being quite employee forward in this manner, because you don't have to be 21 to participate. So I don't think the 90 days waiting to get in is a huge deal, but I think it's very helpful when we have employees who turn over in less than 90 days, that we don't go through that paperwork of getting them in the plan and then them having to extricate themselves from the plan. So again, it's let's do what's the expedient thing, not necessarily get them in on day one if that's not the right thing to do. That's just my thoughts. But again, we need more clarification on that. So.
And as far as your comment about the union contracts, Brad and I have already talked. There's a simple way to work through this. Number one, we're doing the SEIU and 911 this year, and we change it. It's 90 days. We get everybody on a 90-day format, and then you've got uniformity across the county. As far as any of the other contracts that are not open this year, you do a LOU.
Well, those are not subject to the 401A retirement program either.
Well, you're correct, the ones that are not open this year. But my point is we're in a process,
Right.
you know? We'll get everybody on the same page, because conformity or uniformity is gonna make things easier for, like Kathy said, for staff, if it's uniform, so. Anyways, and anyone that didn't read, I think it was in there, one of the reasons that Kathy and I talked about this last night, about clarification on this pre-tax, post-tax issue, we've got till March 15th to have this documentation in. So it's not like we have to do it today, we can do it on March 8th and get the clarification we need.
Commissioner, one thing I would ask in that discussion is, on our health plan, we have different classifications for eligibility on the health plan based on job description within the county. Can we do is the same thing eligible on that 401A plan? Because elected officials have been immediately eligible for the 401A program, not the 90 days or 800-hour waiting period. So maybe we, in that clarification, if we're going to say 90 days, we want that 401A paperwork that's filed to say 90 days. But is there eligibility for declaring different classes of employees?
I believe you could structure it any way you want. The question is how difficult and how much do you want your hands tied with the adoption agreement versus can you leave the adoption agreement broad and address it through the employee handbook or past practice, or why are we doing it the way we're doing it? That would be my question. And so we'll see, because we already know that there's different levels of entering the plan. Because as you stated, commissioners are eligible day one, and I would have to verify with the Derek and or the clerk's office payroll if everybody else is on the 800 hours that they've been using, or is there a different playing field if you're elected, and I'm assuming maybe all electeds go in on day one versus your appointed, your department heads. And so again, I will, that question will be asked and we'll kind of figure that out. But again, I don't think this adoption agreement is incorrect in the way it's written. And I don't know that we want to have that complexity in the adoption agreement if we don't have to. We don't want that more complex if we don't have to.
Please continue.
And I think David said that's been around for 30 years.
Correct.
That 401A. I'll try and pick some brains too.
Okay.
As to that clarification as to why the employees was post-tax and the employers was pre-tax contribution. As to why that was set up that way, if somebody's got else has any more insight on that.
Yeah, I believe it's been at least 30, I think it was in the 80s, mid to late 80s that they switched over to the 401, wasn't it?
We're around 90.
Yeah,
I think it was before then.
yeah, I'm thinking it was,
I was thinking it was early 80s when they did away with the defined benefit
yeah,
plan and went to a,
ask your dad, he'll remember. All right.
got away from him to get back from down south.
All right, the next thing I want to touch on is it's been brought to the Budget Committee's attention that there has been an inquiry by 5 investors to purchase the annex building. They contacted Mark, so I'll let Mark discuss it more fully.
So I got a phone call and Darren Spieth said he could, I could openly tell you that he was the one that called. He has a group of 5 investors that are interested in looking at the building. Up till about a week or 2 ago, it was still on the city's webpage that it was for sale. I had told Kelly to pull it off because we didn't know what we were doing. I think at this point, what the group of 5 would like to do is look at the building, and I don't see any harm in that, but I want the board's blessing to go ahead and have Randy give that group a tour. And then if they come back with an offer, then we've got a choice to make. The other part of that discussion that I had with Darren is that we don't know where district court's going today. You know, now we might know in a couple of weeks, but, you know, if there was a purchase offer, we would have to decide, and he did not think that there was a problem as far as us leasing space back. And then they start work on the rest of the building, doing what they want to do. Or they could wait a year, you know, they could draw up an agreement where they take possession in a year. So, you know, there's a lot of flexibility as far as the conversation I had with Darren. But step one is he wanted permission from the board to ask Randy for a tour of the facility.
Do you want that in the form of a motion?
I think it would be prudent.
I would move that we allow Randy to give the investment group a tour of the building with the intent of looking at a potential offer for purchase.
Support.
Any further discussion or questions? I pretty much told you the gist of the conversation, but I'll follow up with Darren. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Please continue, Kathy.
Went to my various township and city meetings over the last month. One thing that was brought up at the Fayette Township meeting, there was a conversation here about prescriptions at the sheriff's office. They would dispose of those. It was brought to my attention that unexpired prescriptions that people don't need, don't want, can go to St. Peter's Free Health Clinic. They repurpose those, so I just wanted that information out there. And then the other thing is I saw at Moscow Township, they raised the clerk and the treasurer's salaries by 25%. I think that's an indication that the clerks and treasurers, with everything going on, it's taking them more time to get their job done. So I just kind of want to point that out. The other thing Moscow Township mentioned is that if this commission or the county is going to ask for a buy-in from the townships and cities and villages for the 800 megahertz radio as a funding source of some sort, they said get your message out there, and because their budgets, they're forming their budgets, and if you think that they're going to allocate some money towards that project, they need to incorporate that in their budgeting process. So essentially, sooner versus later should be the policy. Other than that, Brent and I, as the budget committee with Derek, will be meeting hopefully later this week to go over prioritizing the capital projects / ARPA list with the county commissioner's input. So I've received Doug's input. I need the rest of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
supposed to be handing in your homework.
I got it here.
Yep.
I told her though that she didn't update the list with the things that we added the other day. So.
Well, see, now you're on the budget committee. I guess you don't really need to hand it to her, but,
Okay, very good.
Only one of the teachers is kind of.
okay.
All right, unless you have questions for me, I think that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Kathy? Brent, you're up.
All right, well, let's go over the discussion item here, and that's rules procedure. And one thing I had talked with Chairman Wiley about after our last meeting is I think we need to do a better job in this body of reminding the public when we come to public comment. Number one, we want to hear from them. But number two, we have adopted rules for public comment. I shared with Commissioner Wiley the rules that our local school board has adopted that we post on every one of our agendas for every meeting. So those rules are posted on the back or front or back, wherever there's room of that agenda, so that the public that comes has a copy of those rules and don't have to go and research those and review those. And I will routinely watch other public bodies videos, and I refer to the city of Hillsdale and the job that Mayor Stockford does when they come to public comment. He reminds the public of the rules that have been adopted, that, you know, and the time limit that's adopted for public comment. I don't keep I have not kept a stopwatch of the individuals that have spoken at our meetings here in the past, but I routinely think that there are times where we have some commentators that go over 5 minutes in their time frame. Now, if somebody has something very important that they think we need to address, we allow that. We allow them to ask to be placed on the agenda as a public comment. If you look at our board rules, and I printed a copy of those for each and every one of you underneath Rule 5.13, this is on page 4, number 9. You know, that they can ask, you know, to be placed on the agenda for a reasonable period of time. And, you know, we ask that they come up with that at least 7 days prior to the scheduled meeting. I guess I would just ask, when it comes to public comment, that the chair, when we come to public comment period, whoever that chair is, just remind the public of, you know, these are our rules, these are our timelines. I would also like to see that number 3 printed on every agenda.
So that's the only section of that you think is paramount to?
To me, I think that's the only section that's paramount. You know, the Open Meetings Act does give a public body the right to exclude somebody from a meeting,
Right.
if they are disturbing the peace at that meeting. That's the only meeting you can remove them from, is that meeting, if they disturb it. And they have to, now, the question there is, what's disturbing the peace? Because that's vague and ambiguous and open to interpretation.
Correct.
Okay? And again, I just ask that, you know, I want to hear from the public. I want to hear from all the public. And so if somebody's here and we have a full house, I don't want somebody to have to sit and wait 2 hours because everybody in front of them took 10 minutes to speak.
Well, I think the other part that you sent me was, there was language in there about, you know, being respective and respectful.
And these are our rules. We would have to change our rules if we want to add any other language. To me, I think that's just common courtesy. In civics, we can have disagreements. Commissioner Schmidt and I are going to disagree on some things, especially this week when we talked about that ARPA funding.
Kathy
You know,
will win.
they always do.
Zero poll. Can I get in?
Over unders. Commissioner Wiley, you and I will disagree on things, okay? But we're civil in our discussion, in our discourse
Yep.
on that,
Yeah.
okay? And I just ask, would ask the public, we're gonna disagree at times. Many times we're gonna disagree, but we can all be civil in that disagreement and carry on to the next thing that we can agree on.
To for a reason.
No, I'm looking at Bob too.
We're community members that come to every meeting.
Yep. And we love to have you. We love to have the public here at all of our meetings. I wish we've had many meetings that we didn't have a whole lot of public here, and that's discouraging. I want as many of the public at meetings as possible, because it's that public involvement that keeps us grounded, that it's not our decision that we're making, it's the decision for the citizens of the county as a whole. And again, I don't think we need to change the rules, I just think we need to, go back to basics and remind the public of those rules and make sure that we comply with them on our part and on their part.
So would it be the consensus of the board that we print that item 3? There's usually room on the back of our agendas. Would it be the consensus that we,
That's fine.
okay, make it so? We'll do that going forward, that it'll be printed on there, that's our rule as far as public comment. And it, you know, specifically addresses the 5 minutes, so I'll just have to watch my clock closer.
You know, we can always look at the YouTube too, and I mean, we can tell how long somebody speaks. So if there's ever any question, we actually are running the timer in the video, so.
Right,
Correct, but yes.
right.
So, and just a moment, Mr. Chair.
Yep,
You know, I want to make sure, and just echoing what Commissioner Lyman is saying, to encourage the public to address this body with any of their concerns. I don't want to do anything at all that will limit their ability to do that. I'm glad that we have 2 public comment sections on our agenda. I'm glad that we don't restrict those to agenda items or anything else. We're pretty open, and I'm really glad to see that, because there are bodies that they make you fill a card out in advance if you want to speak. And I think that sometimes that people are seized with the passion of the moment, and they want to add something that they didn't think they were going to address earlier on. So I'm glad that we do things the way we do, and really would like to continue in that manner. I think that we've created rules that are respectful for the public, respectful for this body, and to give everyone an equal opportunity to speak. So thank you.
The other thing that I would stress is, when we go to that, we remind the public that this is not public discussion with the board. This is our opportunity to shut our mouths and to listen. And it's their opportunity to speak. And I guess that's all that I have on that. I have a very busy week ahead this week. I've got 2 more meetings today, 3 meetings on Thursday. So many of those committees and boards that I serve on, our traditional meetings are this week, so very few updates on those bodies. I had mentioned at our last meeting that I had been added to a committee at Community Action Agency. They actually changed my assignment. I was removed from the policy personnel committee and changed to the budget committee at Community Action Agency, and so we did have a committee meeting last week, but the board meeting is this week. One of the things in the correspondence, and I had shared this with the clerk, Cass, was the South Michigan Food Bank resource guide as to where individuals in our community who need resources, where they can find food resources throughout many different times of the year. And I do believe the clerk's office has posted that on the bulletin board over in the courthouse. That is out there. Please take that and share that with your townships as you continue to have meetings, because there are many of those areas there that they can get out and get resources. That's all that I have today. And I'm still waiting for info from the...
Michigan Works Southeast,
No,
because you were going to send me another email.
I thought I
Or
did.
did you? On virtual meeting.
I did. I thought I had forwarded that email to you. We did.
Yeah, I looked for it this morning and I didn't see it.
There's some question there as to whether they can have, the next meeting that's planned is, to my understanding, is going to be a virtual meeting, but there's some legal clarification that needs to be had whether they are truly a public body and must have a physical presence or be able to participate in meetings remotely. So that I don't know.
Okay.
I am still waiting on information from the they give out grants. Community Foundation, Ms. Beischer, for the administration of the FEMA grants.
Oh, okay.
How detailed and encompassed that is. In April, we will have an opening on the Community Action Agent, the Region 2 Area Agency on Aging Board. Curtis Gale's term is up at the end of April. I have spoken to Curtis, he does anticipate reapplying for that, but I just want to put that out there that there is, and we'll be posting that for applications to come in for service on the community, Region 2 Area Agency on Aging Board of Directors. So, but Curtis does a wonderful job there as well.
Well, the reason I bring up that Southeast Michigan ordinance, because Brad and I talked about it Thursday, and one of us will probably take that over because Doug needs to shed it because of some conflicts with his schedule. But equally, we've both got conflicts with
Right.
it, so
Right.
that's,
Well, yeah,
So the
that's-
virtual would be greatly
Yeah.
helpful, much like community
Well,
action.
it's just like today, I've got Hillsdale Senior Center board meeting at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and then I've got a Region 2 Area Agency on Aging Personnel Committee meeting got moved from Friday because of the weather to 4 o'clock this afternoon. So it's kind of hard to get from Hillsdale to Brooklyn, so both of those are actually virtual, or can be virtual meetings. On Thursday, I've got Board of Health meeting in the morning, and then I've got 2 more board meetings that I've got Region 2 Area Agency on Aging meeting at 2 o'clock that afternoon, and then Community Action Agency board meeting at 4 o'clock that afternoon. So the Board of Health is in person, the other 2 are able to be virtual right now, which is the reason that the legislature in Lansing needs to rethink some things and modify some language on the Open Meetings Act to allow bodies like that I think should be able to continue to stay virtual with their meetings. And you know, anybody wants to participate from the public, there's Zoom links or WebEx links to those meetings.
well, and I guess to go along with that, I don't know if either Brad or I could attend every one,
And
even if it's virtually, so that if it is virtually, I guess another question would be is if he can't be at one and we need 2 commissioners.
well, and that's the thing, right? That board, there's what, 7 counties?
6.
Okay, and the quorum requirement is not,
2, it's 1.
it's, you have to
From
have
each county.
1 member from each county present. So you could have 10 members present, but be missing both commissioners from 1 county, and you don't have a quorum.
Right.
Correct. And just to speak about my committee membership,
Yep.
if the virtual is in effect,
Yep.
then I'm able to participate at a better fashion. As Commissioner Leininger explains, when you have multiple board meetings on a particular day that are within a time frame, then that takes me out on certain other meetings. And so if that virtual is in place, if we share to a point, we do need 1 member to attend.
Yeah.
And that would address my concerns.
But I thought I had forwarded an email to you and that had actually originated with KZ Bolton.
Yeah, well, in your first email, you mentioned KZ Bolton and that you were going to share another email, but it never showed up.
But-
If you did send it.
Okay, because, yeah,
Send it
there
again.
was that language that their attorneys think that in the future they can't be all virtual. So yeah, there's, like I said, there's some clarification that needs to be had
Oh,
regarding that.
Lansing needs to address this in 2 sweep. So,
Point of clarification, you say all virtual. You mean any virtual or?
And, well, and that's right, in essence, any virtual.
Okay, any virtual, okay.
So it would have to be an in-person meeting.
yeah. Brad?
For me, it's like being a little bit pregnant, okay? Either you are a public body subject to the Open Meetings Act, or you're not. And that, your comments about the legislature addressing this, what I'm seeing is I'm seeing bodies that are doing this to try and, for convenience, to get around the intent of the Open Meetings Act. And one of them is, as I always like to point out, so the public can sit out there that, you can't meet behind 3 sets of locked doors, because that happens. I mean, it does happen. And then, the public can participate virtually, but we need to have they need to have the ability to sit in the seats in the same room with a quorum of that body if they're a public body. And so that's my only thing about that, Commissioner, and all commissioners, is that, either this is a public body and it's subject to the Open Meeting Act, and the Open Meetings Act is pretty clear. You gotta be there, you gotta have physical presence, you gotta let the public in. So, and if they're not a public body, then it's pretty easy. One of the places that gets a little interesting, a little murky, is Community Action Agency, which is not a public body. They're a private nonprofit corporation, but their bylaws say they'll abide by the tenets of the Open Meetings Act. So they've actually gone beyond what they're required to by the law, but they do have the ability, because they are a private body. Bylaws probably ought to be amended to allow for that, because they really they're saying we're going to abide by it, but they're not. So, and it's an evolving landscape.
Yeah, and the other difficult thing with Michigan Works Southeast is their meeting dates are not consistent,
Right.
and from month to month. They move around from a Tuesday to a Wednesday to a Thursday in a different week
In a different time slot as well.
within each month. So yes, that's where some of those problems arise.
And that's probably an accommodation so that you can get people who don't have conflicts. And I think that's where, if we had the option of, obviously you've already clarified we need one commissioner there, but if we had the option with a second, and those 2 commissioners, whoever that appointment is, can work together so that we make sure we have whatever date it is, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and whatever time it is, that we can have one of those commissioners present.
And unless something drastic changes in my calendar, I think there was 3 dates of those meetings that came out, Mr. Ingles, that you weren't going to be able to attend.
I think I had 4 dates. Yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking that you would put 3 on there. My calendar, as of right now, I was available those days, so.
So we'd at least meet our requirement of one being present. But I guess, if we can get clarification on the virtual thing, then it sounds like one of the 3 of us can, make sure we've got 2 present, as long as the virtual capability is. So let us know on that.
Will do.
Thank you.
One final thing, Pittsford Township has decided to go ahead with an addition to their township hall. They will be adding bathrooms indoors.
We laugh, but it's cold in November in those porta johns.
It is.
And there's no more Sears catalogs,
Yeah.
And so, which will include a well and
Okay.
septic as well to that addition, so.
Are they talking about eventually building a new township hall, or is that?
Cinda Walton's not here, you better watch your tongue if you say that around her.
I see. I know that is a kind of a historic old building.
Yeah.
And it is well preserved.
Yeah.
They've done a nice job of preserving.
They have.
Well,
They have.
they've had several, part of the problem with that building is its proximity location to that intersection. They've had a couple of vehicles actually hit the building in the past, do some damage to the foundation that's had to be repaired. Full Construction was awarded the bid for this addition. What was it? It's not a very big addition, like 20 by 24. $240,000 was the bid award.
Are they going off the south side or?
It'll be on the south side, it's gonna be, because they wanna kinda keep the roof peak the same, they're going to offset it back a little bit
Okay,
to get that new addition a little bit further away from the road, but yeah, not very, well, a lot of dollars for not very big of
yeah,
an addition.
sure.
But that also includes they have 2 overhead furnaces currently in their current structure, and they're going to replace those with a central forced air.
Oh, so the 240 includes an update on their HVAC? Yeah,
Well,
okay.
I would assume they're gonna air condition that with.
I think they're going to
Washington,
have to air condition. I mean, so it's gonna, you say HVAC, they don't have,
Yeah, I know exactly.
they don't really have ventilation or air conditioning, they just have heat.
Yeah, you're there in August, you better hope all the windows and doors are open, so, yeah, okay. Well, that's interesting. Anything else? Or questions for Brent? All right. That brings us up to Mr. Bragg.
All righty, we will start out with our action, and Tom, you ready? You awake? Caffeinated? All right, 22-032, to the Honorable Board of Commissioners. We, your Public Safety and Judiciary Committee, recommend the purchase of 5 new dispatch consoles, partitions, carpet, and related equipment by Hillsdale County Central Dispatch from, is it Zybex?
Correct.
Zybex Systems, Inc., 8207 South Park Circle, Littleton, Colorado, 80120. The amount for this purchase is $138,649.29, and the bid was approved by the Emergency Services Telephone Board on February 16, 2022. Furthermore, the funds for this purchase shall be taken from the Special Projects Account 261-425-00-862-000. Additionally, we authorize Thomas Whitaker, Hillsdale County 911 Director, to sign the contract for this purchase, and I would move for adoption.
Support.
All right, and if I can just lead off on this, Madam Budget Chair, I did check when I'm getting the account number. The amount that was budgeted for this does not cover the purchase of it, just so that everyone is fully aware. I will let Tom speak to the history. I think that probably his predecessor derived that budget number, and I will let him speak to the need. Tom, if you would.
Thank you, Commissioners. So, yeah, the previous administration budgeted $75,000 for this project. I don't know where that number came from or how that number was brought up. We sent requirements of the stuff that we would need to 3 separate companies. One being Zybex, the other being Russ Bassett, located, hang on just a second, I'll tell you where they're located, sorry. Cleveland, and the other was Watson Council, based out of Washington. Locally, we don't have anybody here in the local area that can provide this, unfortunately. So I went to the ETSB board back in January and proposed this. They wanted quotes on replacing all 5 councils, so that's what we did. We moved forward with the 3 quotes from the companies. Zybex came in overall. I had them quote the carpet separately, but the carpet and consoles all combined $138,649.29. The reason we're looking at replacing this, we have consoles. The consoles are used actually from Monroe County, so they've been in service for quite some time. Prior to that, the dispatch consoles at the old dispatch center were also used. So our dispatchers have been working with equipment that's kind of antiquated and needs some updating. The current consoles, they have heating and cooling as well, because everybody personal comfort, it does get warm or cold in there depending on situations. Half of those do not work. Our task lighting doesn't work. So this is a much needed upgrade for the dispatch center. And Zybex overall came in at the lowest price. So
That was on the councils and the carpet.
the carpet I only got quoted from Zybex. That's why I had it quoted separately. The councils, yes, they came in as the lowest at $119,000, $120,000.
When you're talking about carpet, Thomas, you're talking about carpet for that entire room?
Yeah, just for that specific room, not the whole building.
Right.
Just that room.
And there is only 5 workstations in there?
Correct. So we're not adding, we're just replacing what we have.
Correct.
Tom, I noted in that carpet that it's unique to that product. There's anti-static strips in it so that when they walk across it, they're not having issues with static electric discharge to the electronic equipment
Correct.
on there.
So we want to protect our investments. Obviously, you know, we have a lot of computer equipment in there, radios and such. This carpet specifically is anti-static. It's grounded, so if there is a static charge, it's grounded out. So I think that is an important value to protect our investments as the county. And as you know, we're not supplemented by general funds. It's surcharge money that we're spending this on. So you know, we're pretty self-sufficient out there in the grand scheme of things. So I think us trying to protect those investments, you know, will help save the taxpayers in the long run.
So 75 was budgeted. You've taken this back to the ETSB board. The amount is almost double. And so how are they suggesting to make up the shortfall, or what did they approve?
We currently have the money in our fund balance.
Okay.
It may make us over budget for the year,
Okay.
based off Doug's numbers. Again, I can't speak to where I came up with those, but we do have the money in our fund balance for that.
And the ETSB board is good with that?
Correct.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, they voted and approved on it last Wednesday?
Yeah, last Wednesday. yeah.
Okay.
So-
And you got a $200,000 CD right now
Correct, yeah.
that you reported on. And then you had an additional $400,000 on hand, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And
So,
when I saw this, I reached out to our local member on that board, and he wasn't able to be at your meeting, but he did report. So you're going to do, one of the benefits of using Zybex to do the carpet and the councils is that they'll do part of the room that one day and the other part the next, so that they can,
Correct.
it's
yeah.
all
So-
integrated and
So that's part of our challenge is we have to shut down 3 councils on day 1 so they can do half the dispatch center the way it's laid out. And then the second day they were going to come in, lay the carpet, put the councils in on that second side. So it's
You got a question or comment?
So my comment is on the carpet. We do have local carpet companies, Country Carpets comes to mind, you know, that they would be perhaps interested in this project, but it does make total sense to me to have a single vendor when you have to do the swapping that's required during the course of, you know, the install. So, you know, having that single source does matter.
yeah. And
You know, I've lived through some of those projects, and I can tell you that having one guy, rather than trying to coordinate more vendors together, having the one is more efficient and gets, you know, then you only have one phone call to make as well when something isn't right.
Correct.
So-
And Commissioner, I had thought the same thing as well, but then said after talking with Chief McNabb from the Wright Walden Fire Department, who serves on the ETSB board, the concern is that specialty need of that carpet with the grounding and the anti-static. You know, I know Country Carpets quite well, know the owners quite well. I'm not sure if they could probably get that product, but it may be a learning curve for installation
Right,
for
familiarity.
them or.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Single source is better.
And you know, just to add to that, as a local retailer, I always want to give preference to our local vendors. But when I was going through the bid and I saw the carpet, it was like, well, we can get carpet anywhere. But then I saw the grounding strips on there, understood the rationale behind that, and just to echo what Commissioner Ingles has said, having a single vendor that they're going to come in, they're going to coordinate, that project's all going to, it makes good sense to me logistically to do it this way.
There you go.
Catherine?
How old is the current carpet?
It was put in when the building was built, so it's 6 years old.
6 or 7, yeah, right in that time frame.
Yeah.
And the reason
I
we're
mean, it's-
replacing the carpet
It's
is?
used 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have chairs like that rolling around on it. It's getting worn down. So,
It's not, no wear and tear.
yeah.
And-
I mean, it's a 24/7 operation.
And if you didn't replace it now, then you've got to tear those consoles out in 2 years to replace the carpet that's underneath them.
Correct.
Or take them out, put them back, you know.
I guess my question would be is, two questions. One, on the bid, I saw there was a pandemic surcharge. Did you guys discuss that and try to get rid of it?
No, I did not.
Because surcharges are negotiable, and the freight company was always already charging a surcharge, and then you had an additional pandemic surcharge.
Okay.
I thought
I
that
can
was-
follow up on that, Commissioner.
I would ask that question. I know at one time there was discussion of, not at this board, but somewhere else, about whether surcharges,
Yeah.
are negotiable or not. So the pandemic surcharge is the one that kind of, stuck out at me. The other thing is, the budget was only $75,000. There was not an expansion of this project or anything to get it to 100, almost 140?
When we originally approached the ETSB board with original quotes, we quoted 4 councils, which were well over 100,000 alone. So the recommendation of the ETSB board at that time, which Mr. Benzie was there, was to quote all 5 councils, all new, and get everything identical, looking the same, professional. Because right now our councils are kind of hodgepodge together, per se.
Why did we only have 4 versus 5 originally? What's
I was
the
trying to stay
status
within
of
that
the
75,000,
bid? Okay.
but when we got the original quotes, give me just a second here, sorry.
That's all right.
So one of our original quotes was just over 76,000, and to replace the additional council, added obviously an additional cost at that five number, plus the carpet. So I mean, there were some things that transpired in between.
So originally you weren't replacing carpet?
Correct.
Okay.
But more we talked about and discussed it, again, with what Commissioner Meyer said, if we replace it now, we don't have to tear councils out in 5 years, relay carpet, and get those councils re-put in. So we're looking at this as a global project, just not a isolated project.
Right.
So, and if we do it now, the center should be set for a good 15 years. Everything is warranted 10 years from all the vendors, actually. But.
Okay. Thank you.
I would say anyone that has not been out there should make a trip out there just so you can visualize what Thomas is talking about. I mean, that's kind of the heart of that building, is that dispatch room. So I would encourage you to go out there if you haven't been.
And just, in addition to that is I know one of the discussions has been to go to longer shifts, which will help with, so if the comfort of those people sitting in those chairs, they've gone to the lease chairs where they're getting new updated ones, or not having to have ones that are held together with duct tape. That's a huge, and I can tell you from, sitting in an ambulance for 12 hours at a time that there's a big difference between 8 and 12. So,
And my understanding is these council walls will be able to be raised so that if somebody
Correct.
is more comfortable standing
Stand.
correct.
to work,
Yeah.
this will accommodate that. So,
Well, and there's a lot of health issues that go along with sitting
12 hours at a time.
extended periods of
Yeah.
time.
Well, it'll give them the opportunity as well to alternate sitting
Correct.
versus standing, and,
Correct.
you know, so. Okay. Any other questions of Thomas? Any other questions about the resolution?
Because the amount, could we do this by roll call, Mr. Chairman?
We can do that. Roll call on 22-032.
Commissioner, that is the new account number for that?
That is what I got from Derek.
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Benzing,
Yes.
Commissioner Leininger,
Yes.
Commissioner Ingalls,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley.
Yes. Resolution passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thomas.
Tom. All right, continue with my report. Prevention Works, our local substance use disorder coalition, was finally able to assemble a physical quorum. Even though we are not subject to the Open Meetings Act, since we are a coalition, our bylaw said that we had to have a physical quorum, so we did amend those at our meeting a week ago, so that now we can have our quorum via remote participation. We did hear a presentation from Livingston County on Big Red Barrel from medication disposal. They're basically a steel drum. They can be located and permanently mounted in an area that is monitored 24/7, such as the lobby area of a police department or other public building. They also can be mounted on a trailer and where they can have community events to bring those items in to dispose of them. They're pretty expensive, but we are continuing to look at not only the disposal of unwanted expired medications, but as well as sharps. Used syringes such as diabetics might use, lancets, things like that. Sometimes those create a potential disposal problem, and also if they are not properly disposed of, there is some potential for reuse and abuse, and that becomes a public health issue. From our townships, we currently have vacancies in the supervisor position in two of my townships. The Amboy supervisor has resigned effective in March, and the Woodbridge supervisor resigned effective the end of January, or excuse me, early February. So they are currently looking to appoint people to those positions, as well as Ransom Township. Their treasurer did resign. Ted Niebush was the longest serving elected official, going back to 1972 when he was first elected. So they are looking at making an appointment for that position as well. And Adams Township did have a quite large turnout. You can always tell the temperature of a township by the number of cars in the parking lot. And they did have a large turnout because of discussion of the need to purchase a new voting tabulator. I did have an opportunity to ride along with Deputy T.J. Leva on February the 10th. Spent about 6 hours out on the road with him. Learned a great deal about our secondary road patrol. That is a little bit different in the roads that car can be on. Of course, they can always do backup. We actually did have a little opportunity to do that at one of our local schools. But primary focus of that and the funding behind it is to patrol and enforce laws on our secondary roads within the county. TJ is a consummate professional. He is also an excellent educator. I know he serves as an FTO for the deputies and teaches a number of the things, and he is excellent in educating. I came away much better informed on the duties of his particular part of the Sheriff's Department. I would encourage my fellow commissioners, if you have interest, to reach out to the sheriff, whether you want to go along with TJ, live during the bright day period, or go along at night. I'm sure Sheriff Hodgshower would be happy to arrange that. And like I say, it was a very, very positive experience, and I would encourage you to take opportunity to go along with that. Did attend the Emergency Telephone Services Board meeting on the 16th. Lights are still out on the Hillsdale Tower. They are looking at actually changing. They tried changing the bulbs. That didn't fix it. So they are actually looking at upgrading to LED lights. We do still have a light on the tower, so we are actually in FAA compliance. But the steady lights that are on them, not the strobe, is the issue. And so they are looking right now at getting some bids on replacing that with much more longer-lived, much brighter LED lights. They currently have 2 applicants going through the vetting process out there, and they still do have openings. Those are now posted on the county website, so if you do know of anyone who might be interested, please direct them to that, and they can get started in that application process. We do have a meeting at noon today. Tom Buckett, with Motorola. They are going to be demonstrating. 12 o'clock. Right after this meeting. So, and be demonstrating various radio equipment that they have available. I know that there will be some number of the fire departments and other public service agencies there as well to see that. Kind of start to focus in a little bit on what we want them to quote, as well as the pagers. The one thing with the pagers, they're pretty easy for all the fire departments because there's a single source for those. They're not a Motorola piece of equipment. And we are still currently on track with a timeline to have a proposal for this board sometime in April. We were talking earlier about conflicts. The River Raisin Watershed Council, their meeting begins in about 5 minutes. And so I was unable to participate in that this month. And while we have the Drain Commissioner here, Matt, again, thank you for your response on the Wildwood Drive. I would like to thank, since that is within my portion of the Hillsdale Township District, Jonesville Fire Department, and some volunteers from Hillsdale City Fire Department. They were not on the clock. They did use some equipment, and they volunteered their time to go out there. They pumped water till about 10:30 last Thursday evening. Ran hose down and got it over the hill, discharged it off to the rearing pond, towards the rearing ponds, and their help in that was greatly appreciated. So that concludes my report, unless there are questions.
Questions or comments for Brad?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. That brings us up to Mr. Doug.
Thank you. I attended last night Hillsdale City Council meeting, and they are in the process and have approved certain special assessment districts for road work, in particular Uran over in the industrial park, as well on Howell Street, Morey, and Linwood area. Those special assessment districts were created to do road work. Linwood, Howell, and Morey, I believe, was in that $400,000 range, as was Uran, slightly less. Those are the round numbers. They also discussed potential ARPA money that would be coming their way, and they are very interested in the road work in the city streets is their high priority. With whatever money and funding they can create in the city of Hillsdale. Yesterday, we had a tour of the courthouse with Source One, who is the representative that handles our clay tile on the roof. They looked at, we had 2 gentlemen come in, and they spent time yesterday looking at the roof. We walked up into the bell tower, and the initial comment and thought is that the clay tile is in terrific shape, and that there's minimal clay tile that appears to be broken, and that process is something that that we should absolutely consider when we get the information from the companies that we're looking at right now. In terms of warranty, the clay tile itself is described as being practically indestructible, and that it certainly will last for our next, several seasons of good roof. The issue seems to be the underlayment that is below the clay tile. The underlayment is not indestructible. The thought was that the underlayment warranty probably is about a 30-year warranty, of which we have expired that. The process that was described yesterday is to remove sections of the clay tile, repair, replace whatever underlayment needs to be addressed, and then clay tile numbered so that they all go back sequentially and as part of the process. The company Source One is very interested in the project. They will come back to us with a proposal. They will come back to us with certain amendments to the proposal as well, to include the cupola, clock, bell tower, and sandstone exterior of the courthouse. In other words, complete exterior top to bottom. And so we will have a variety of information to look at from Source One. My obligation at this time with Source One is to send them the good list so that they know what to work from. And I will be doing that, I anticipate, today. And they will get back to us very soon. They're very interested in the project, and they indicate that they could mobilize and get things moving within 30 days. Now, we are also speaking with Renaissance. They also are very interested. They they have provided a roof proposal. That we talked about as a steel roof. They also indicated initially that the clay tiles were in good shape, and they will come forth with a proposal using those clay tile. On Thursday, Director Finley has a third company that will be taking a tour of the courthouse, and they also will be, they are experts in historic renovations, and they will be proposing top to bottom as well. So we very shortly, as you say, toot sweet, will be having 3 proposals to look at, and that's good news, as opposed to the one that we had before. Okay. So it's fast and furious right at the moment. We're having great response. We'll be making decisions to bring to the Board of Commissioners on that roof very, very soon, I anticipate. Any questions on the courthouse portion?
Source One was located where?
They're Troy,
Michigan.
Troy, or Wixom. They came out of Wixom.
And they're the company, so what is it, Ludaki
Yep.
tiles? When we found out that those were the manufacturer of the tiles that were installed on that building in '81, I reached out to them. They sent our information to their contractor in this area, who was Source One, and they reached out to us, and I put them in contact with Commissioner Ingalls to look at that. So
right, and through Source One, they can contact the tile manufacturer and find out details of our particular job. That's in Ludiki's files. So while we may not have that information handy, they do. And so we will learn questions like warranty, when was it exactly done, what was done, what was spent. These numbers and this documentation will be available as we go.
So Source One does how many tile roofs in the state?
They specialize, they're all over the place. They do historic, they've talked about many projects. They do a lot in the city of Detroit. They've done a lot, specifically what building, I don't know.
Okay.
But they were very complete as we were talking, and they were describing what they do.
The reason I asked that question is because I would say I don't
notice a lot of tile roofs in the state of Michigan. I don't drive on.
So we asked that question, and in fact, in Detroit area, there are more, Bloomfield in specific, he mentioned,
Right.
that had tile roofs.
Okay.
And the tiles that we see, that we have here, are not the same tiles that you see in Southern California. Those tiles are designed and built and constructed with the sun requirements. We are the absorption with the water and the snow. The tiles need to be so dense and so hard that the water doesn't get into those tiles, freeze thaw, and blow up.
Right.
And so the absorption of that tile is something they talked about yesterday.
I believe Hillsdale City Hall also has a tile roof on it.
Don't know who did that though, yeah. I was in on that, but I don't remember.
All right. All right.
So it's a good possibility the same company that did the one on the courthouse was maybe done about the same time.
Who knows? No.
And what I will, that pictured document that we found in the office, I'll scan that so you can share that with the guys at Source One.
They're going to come with drones, and they are moving forward. There'll be a fast pace.
I would like to think we could get something in front of us in March.
They know our schedule.
Okay. Let me know, because we'll make room for them on standing order.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank
Did we
you.
find out who did the Lenawee County Courthouse?
I did not inquire.
Okay. I'm just curious who the general contractor was on that, because that was quite an extensive project.
On a side note, we, Commissioner Schmidt and I, have spent some time talking with construction manager Stillman,
Skillman, yeah.
Skillman, as a potential to oversee many of the projects that we're talking about. So we'll see where that goes. We don't have any more information on that at this time.
You want me to reach out to Marty, the administrator?
Sure, that'd be great if you wouldn't mind doing that. I'd just be curious to find out who the contractor was, since they did very, very recently.
They just finished.
Yeah, very recently, so.
And I've got some meetings, said Region 2 area, an aging meeting on Thursday, and Community Action Agency with some of their board members, so I could ask them as well, if you don't get an answer.
Yeah, I'll shoot Marty an email, because
It would be interesting to know.
I communicate with him from time to time, so, okay. All right, what else you got?
All right, to continue, we have had discussion among commissioners. We have had certain discussion with road commission members as well regarding the possibility of altering the number of road commission members. Currently, there are 3, and even from the road commission, there has been certain desire to add 2 members so that discussions can be more free-flowing between road commission members. Currently with 3, anytime there are 2 together, there's quorum, which makes it difficult to converse, bounce ideas, create plans of what ifs, and so on and so forth. I have in front of you the Michigan statute. It's 224.6, and in 224.6, if you go down to in section 6, number 6, the county board of commissioners can propose to alter the number of county road commissioners as allowed under this act. It talks about the process by which that can happen. Requires public hearing and then a vote of the commissioners to alter. In addition, there are appointments that would be made, and some of these appointments that would be made to the new added members expire January 1 of the first odd number year following the date of appointment. We do have certain questions about what happens with that appointment after that time. Another option is if you go down to number 8 and 9, they talk about the possibility of
Doing away with the elected.
yeah, it's, I want to read it completely. Of transferring the powers, duties, and functions of the elected Board of County Road Commissioners of that to the County Board of Commissioners. And it describes the process by which that would happen. It's two open, at minimally 2 public hearings, and then it would go to a vote of the people. The vote of the people then would vote to dissolve or retain the road commission as it exists, and then the Board of Commissioners would move forward accordingly. Again, there are certain legal questions that we don't have a good idea on, and I would request to be authorized to ask council some of these questions that we have. I'm not authorized just to go over and speak with Tom, but we do have some questions so that we, if we decide to go down that path, that we know what we're doing and follow the correct procedure. The third option actually would be to remain as it stands with 3 road commissioners. So today, I see that we have our chairman of the road commission.
Yes, sir.
And I would ask, Bob, if you have something, please stand. Yeah, please go to the podium and it's kind of, you and I have talked a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Hasn't been a big point of discussion.
And I'm 100% against it.
Yeah.
Could I ask who was for that road commission? Because nobody that I know of is.
Road Commissioner Leiner and I have had a
Okay.
discussion.
And in 18 years, this is my 18th year, no one has ever asked me about adding to 5.
Yeah.
Nobody. You've been on the county commission for 6 months and you asked me. You knew nothing about the road commission. And Mr. Leininger did the same thing. 6 months, he asked me. Okay? Road commission was started in 1919. 103 years. There's never been more than 3 commissioners. We've got a copy of it here. It shows every commissioner that has ever served on the board. And I see no reason for 5. And I'll tell you why. My reasoning is, if we've got 3, I'm not going to come to you and ask you how you're going to vote. Because I can't. And I don't want to. Because I don't believe in this back door making deals. And that's something that does not happen at the road commission. Everything's out in the open. I want to do it in an open meeting. If I want to make a decision, it's going to be the open meeting. I'm not going to go to every commissioner and say, hey, can I get you to vote this way or this way? I don't believe in that. And I'm 100% against it. And Mr. Parney is 100% against it. So that's my deal. That's all I got to say.
The list, Bob, that you sent me, the 1919, are you okay with me?
Oh, yes,
Sending that?
yes. They could even have a couple of these too. Oh, you're
I
okay.
just sent it to all of them,
Yeah,
so go ahead.
Bob, I know that it was by public ballot that road commission was shifted from an appointed to an elected. What year did that occur?
that, they don't really tell on here when that occurred, but I think it's been about 40 years ago is when that happened.
Just kind of trying to reconstruct in the 70s.
40, I think it was.
So,
And that being said, Branch County has got 3. Lenawee County has got 3. Calhoun County had 3. Then they went to 5, okay? Well, then, that wasn't working. So, the county took them over. And I just heard the other day, they're thinking about going back to 3 commissioners. Elected.
is Branch appointed or elected?
Elected.
You know, I just as part of this discussion, I would be interested, and I can ask the clerk. The clerk would probably be the best source for when that election occurred. But also to lay over that when the adoption of the Open Meetings Act was, because I think that those two discussions are germane, because it really does create a difficulty. And I'm not saying that there is any problem, but it really does for you or any other road commissioner to call another one or to email another. One of the things that we are very, very careful of whenever that we have an email is we don't reply to it. That has all
Right.
so we never create an email discussion. And so, you know, that if you shoot an email off to somebody, one of your fellow board members, technically, if they answer you back,
Sure.
you
Violation.
right. So I'd be curious, and really, like I say, I think that it's germane to the discussion. When the Open Meetings Act in its current form was adopted,
1976.
okay, and when we went from an appointed road commission, appointed by this body, to an, and I think that, you know, that occurred in the 70s.
Yeah,
So
I think you're right, Brad.
as well. So it would be interesting, because I think that the two, they're at least somewhat tied together. So,
But I just, 103 years of 3 commissioners, I don't think they've done too much wrong,
so
you know.
When did we change from the township road board, from the township having control over their roads to the county roads?
That's been quite a few years ago on that. And that being said, every township, pretty much, we suggest to them, but we still believe in the township having a say in what roads get done, when they get done, and we've always been that way. Now, we have counties, I would say that Lenawee is one of them. Lenawee does not meet with their townships at all, their commissioners. Why? I have no clue how that works, I don't know, but to me, that's not a good idea. We go at least every other month, sometimes we'll go month after month, but depends on what they got going, and which townships got going. And then plus, if you go back to Lenawee County, their township pays 100% of everything that's done in their township, 100%. Our townships aren't even close to that. We believe in a match, and there is no match in Lenawee County. It's 100% townships. So, I don't think we're doing too bad. We have a lot of complaints, but you're gonna get them.
Bob, in the state, with all the counties, do you happen to know how many counties have 5, how many have 3? I've heard that number, but I can't recall.
I've heard it too, and I think we're close to 50-50.
Right, and there are some counties where the Board of Commissioners is the body.
Jackson County is one, Calhoun County is the other, and Calhoun's really thinking about going back.
Right, so as far as 5-3, you think it's about split
I think it's about
between
split.
our 80 counties?
Yeah.
83 to be exact.
Yeah.
Well, but there are three or 5, correct me right, that it is the county board of commissioners who serve as the county road board. There's
I think
either
it's 5.
or
I think it's 5.
I think there's 5
I think
counties.
it's 5.
So you're down to 78.
Yeah.
Because we got 2 right here, Calhoun and Jackson. And I think there's one, I think there's one in UP.
I'm sorry.
And Jackson's been a disaster.
Yes, a huge, they're well over $100 million in debt. The county,
And they were not prior to.
they had no debt when
They
the county.
built a lot of new roads in Jackson. I mean, completely rebuilt a lot of roads in Jackson County. But the county board of commissioners absorbing the road commission is a reasonably recent phenomenon.
Yeah, I think
The
that's.
legislation, I think maybe 8 years ago,
Yeah.
it was a 2-year window, they were allowed, and then it was permanently extended.
the funny part about that is the county taking over road commission. Jackson County was appointed. If you don't like the commissioner, appoint somebody else rather than taking it over. That to me was crazy. You know, why would you do that? You know, if you'd appoint somebody else, you didn't like who was in there.
Bob, to Brad's comment, and I know you and I have talked about this on the email situation. Bob has indicated that sometimes he'll have Maryland send out something,
Yes, Marilyn does.
and
She'll
so,
send out an email to them and then they
You know,
reply to
that helps
her,
to
she
alleviate.
replies back.
you know, so,
And that seems to work well.
yeah.
Then we aren't in a conflict or nothing like that. So,
Just
Yes.
a little bit of clarification. Those are elected 2-year terms or
6.
6-year
6-year
terms?
terms.
Okay.
With
that's
the
what-
rotating or overlapping.
Yeah, they,
And they're at large also?
yes, the whole
And then,
town.
and then once you're elected, you guys can change that configuration among, as by board action?
They would
Go ahead.
change potentially what commissioner would represent the road commission to certain township boards, but they are elected countywide, they can't change that.
No, that's my point, that your coverage area.
Yes,
It's up to the
yes,
3 commissioners to decide what the coverage area
Yeah.
is. It's not set in stone,
No.
and they're elected at large, and I would assume every time there's a new commissioner elected, or every time there's an election, you've discussed whether you're gonna change those
Right.
districts, I would assume.
Yeah, and that being said, our rotation right now is I'm chair, and well, how it works out is the last 2 years of your term, you're chair. Then, so you start out when you come on, you start out as a member. Then in 2 years, you go to vice chair. Then in 2 years, it'll be the last 2 years of your term, you go to chair. And that seems to work well.
So every road commissioner has 2 years
Yes.
as chair.
Yes.
That's kind of nice. So,
And each commissioner has 6 townships.
6 townships. There was one time I had 8. So, but no big deal. You can actually make them. You just gotta drive really fast.
Yeah.
We
Anything?
will remind you that we have 7 or 8, so.
Yeah, but not, ours is all normally in 1 week, you know, is where you gotta cover those. Sometimes it'll split off, depending on what time of the month it is, it'll split off, and we can have a couple on a week before or something. But that's all I got.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Bob before he?
just so we know, the commissioners are paid $4,500 a year?
You wanna know the truth?
4,000
I have no clue.
$4,000 a year, okay.
plus per diems.
Plus per diems, plus mileage.
Yes, we have $30 per
Okay,
diem.
per diem, half-day meetings,
Yeah, and then, same with townships, $30 and mileage.
right? So you get paid to go to your township meetings?
Yes.
Okay, county commissioners don't. So again,
Oh,
just
man,
kind
you better change that.
of, well,
The-
I'm not advocating for change, I'm advocating for transparency here.
Yeah.
So that's what you get paid.
Yeah.
In addition to, you have access for health insurance, and
Yes.
your health insurance is fully funded, or is there
Oh,
a
no.
match?
Well, it depends on what you're gonna pay the deductible, which is, right now it's $9,000.
But you pay no premium.
No premium.
But no premium, but you pay the
And it's
$9,000.
under the hard cap. As long as you stay under the hard cap,
Okay, so you've adopted a hard cap.
yeah.
So that would be my next question.
And it's worked out really well.
Okay. Well, again, I just kind of want to put that out there, because again,
Sure.
to add 2 commissioners,
Yeah.
2 road commissioners,
Yes.
that's what your potential that you're gonna pay for, and that money would then come
From the road.
from paying for the roads.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing I would make mention of, and you can confirm if it's, I assume it's accurate, I was at the Moscow Township Board meeting, and Commissioner Leininger was there, Road Commissioner Leininger was there, and he said that the road commission has changed the township match to be 50-50,
Yes,
and it was,
70/30.
right.
But
So-
we've got to the situation where we think we need to get townships more to produce, and, like Seal Coat, that was 70/30. And we went 50/50, I think that'll help a lot of them Seal Coat. And, because a lot of townships don't have a lot of money. So we're really trying to help them out.
Do you happen to know the fund balance at the road commission off the top of your head?
I will tomorrow noon.
Yeah. Is it,
So it was right close, at the last meeting, we was about 2 million.
That's cash fund balance.
Yes, yes.
Does that include the money set aside for the new trucks?
Yeah, the new trucks are coming in, so that's gonna be gone. The new trucks are in, and they are building them right now. Hopefully, we're gonna have them in March,
but there was a line item for those trucks.
for those trucks, yes.
I think you had
yes.
600,000
We had
set aside.
it in the CD,
Yes.
and, yeah. But that will be used up probably in March.
So the rough estimate on the cost of a road commissioner is $25,000 thereabouts. And 2 commissioners then would be $50,000 on a budget that's approximately, what, 12 million, 13?
12.
$12 million with a $2 million general fund balance.
$50,000 over 10 years.
I guess my point is it's working. Why change it? That's it.
Well, as far as me being 6 months into it, it didn't take me long to see that there was an issue.
Why
And
was
that
there an issue?
There was a problem, from my observation, in the fact that there were 3 commissioners, and whenever 2 of you are talking, that's quorum, and I saw that as something that we needed to discuss. Whether we move forward or not is a whole other subject. However, talking about it is worthy, and that's why we're here and what we're doing. And I think it's good to have you here, and it helps us as well in a public body ask questions that we feel need to be asked,
Sure.
and the public feels need to be asked. And it's not adversarial, it's something that we're trying to do to make it better for our community. And that's my motivation as a board of commissioner. So, to answer your 6-month question.
You was 6 months in when
And
you asked me
I'm
that
answering
question.
that question right now.
And I just don't believe that's the case.
That's okay.
It's worked. It's worked for 103 years. So why rock the boat? That's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Don.
So then, to bring it back to the Board of Commissioners for discussion, are there any questions?
And again, Commissioner Ingalls and I have talked about this. I have a couple of items that I would like clarified in that MCL statute, section 224.6, number 2. And then I compare that to MCL 224.8. And again, that I would ask for some legal clarification there regarding if we should opt after a public hearing for expanding the number of elected road commissioners. For some clarification there as to the appointment, if we did that appointment term of office for those newly created positions.
Go ahead, Brad.
Thank you. I don't know if we're planning on looking into legally the question, but the other question that I would have, since it looks like there's 3 options by reading the statute. So option number 1 is that we can expand the current board of commissioner or road commissioners by having 1 public hearing, and then by resolution do that expansion. Option number 2 is that we can hold 2 public hearings and place that issue, if we choose, by resolution in front of the voters to absorb that into this body. And the third option is to simply leave it the way that it's been, as Bob says, for 90-some years.
103.
103, okay. 103. So circling back to about the legal, what I would like to know is can we have 2 public hearings? Because it says we got to have at least 1 to add to. Okay. So my question is, if we have two, can they be dual purposed, and so that we can get the input of the public via those public hearings as to the idea of adding road commissioners, absorbing road commissioners, or doing nothing? Because that way, it seems like that we've done our full due diligence. If we are at all going to move forward with that, because we can do nothing without holding any public hearings at all. We can just let the matter drop. But I would be interested, as part of seeking legal counsel, as to if we can have those two public hearings in regards to the same question, or they have to be two distinctly different events.
Right, so as far as adding, it says we need at least one.
Right.
Okay, whether it's dual or not, it does not address that.
And so that's why, if we have two, can we consider both possibilities?
Well, and you and I talked about this briefly on Thursday. The whole idea of two, regardless of what the statute said, is one, is we had talked about having one in the daytime and one in the evening, because that's more fair to the public. So from my vantage point, I would really like the question of two regardless, because there's a lot of people that can't come in the day, there's some that can't come at night, so you make it more open.
Yes.
But
Just a couple things. Number one, to change, it just has to be by vote, not by a resolution, according to the statute as I read it. And yeah, I would be amicable to looking at that. We just would, as I read it, we would have to make sure we post both meetings as the potential public hearing to hear public comment on either changing the number of elected road commissioners, or to do away with the, or to consider the, putting to the public the option to do away with their elected members on the road commission.
I think to Brad's point, can one
Can we
hearing
Do
or
Do both, I think, yeah.
can they
but
do
yes.
both items, or do we need two different hearings?
Well, you could have two public hearings at the same meeting.
Right,
True.
right.
True.
Right, that's true. Well, as far as contacting legal, it sounds like you two have been conversing. If you want one of you put together the email or phone call, I would recommend email, because then once you get the answers, you can forward them on to us. But by all means, you need to, if we're gonna continue this discussion, we need some legal advice.
So authorized?
So be it.
Thank you.
All right.
And I think, Road Commissioner Godfrey mentioned that, we've had the county road commission for, 103 years
Right.
now. But remember, a vast majority of that, we had a county road commission, but we had the local townships were in charge of all of their local roads, okay? There was no county road commission working on local township roads. The county road commission dealt only with those county primary roads. The local roads were still managed and maintained by the local jurisdictions.
And Act 51 and 1951 changed that.
That changed that and went to the county, to the complete county road system.
Right, so, so to your point, though, the county has been working as a whole with the townships for roughly 70 years.
Well, we would have some township representatives, maybe even in our public today, that would contend that the county road commission doesn't work with the townships.
And if that is the case, that they will have an
They will have
opportunity
ample
to-
opportunity to express that either in public comment or in a public hearing
Yep.
setting.
Well, I think Brad and I are the only past township officials, but I do know back from my time, and I'm sure Brad can appreciate, I always thought the meetings with the road commission in January were at least informative, sometimes not always functional, but informative.
Dysfunctional might describe some of them.
But, you know, as Bob indicated, Lenape County, and I know some of the folks over there, they don't have that interaction. So I think that's a plus that we do here in Hillsdale County. Now, whether it's functional or dysfunctional, you know, each township can make their own comment on that, but.
So I did, to continue my report.
Okay.
Last evening at Hillsdale City Council, there was a question previously about the Hillsdale County Road Commission raising their snow blades as they came into the city of Hillsdale. The council asked that question, why do they bring their blades up when they come into the city of Hillsdale? And I did speak with John Sanders, and many of the, I got many questions answered, and the simple answer is that local units of government have boundaries, and that the city's public service department can provide technical details on how that funding works. But in Michigan, the County Road Commission is in charge of all public streets and roads in the county that are not in a city or village. And Hillsdale County has 608 miles of primary roads, 600 miles of local roads, for a combined total of 12.8 of certified county roads. 616 miles of the county roads are paved, and 591 miles are gravel or dirt. The Hillsdale County Road Commission also maintains 93 miles of state highways under contract with MDOT, and it was explained that the city of Hillsdale is responsible for maintaining streets inside of the city limits. So we spoke about that last night at Hillsdale City Council, and I bring some of this information now because I'm not sure that that we all realize what the miles look like in terms of paved and gravel.
Well, I think, doesn't the city receive some Public Act 51 money?
Yeah,
Yes.
and so do villages.
Yes.
And that's why they maintain their own.
Right.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. Because that's the, I think the villages do as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Village of North Adams is the only one in my district, but their street superintendent has monthly reports they have to file. They work with the clerk to do that. Then they get reimbursement of those funds back. They have to account for exactly what work they did, the hours included, materials used. I know Village of Montgomery,
Yep.
that they have a street superintendent. Village of Camden has a street superintendent.
I listened to their reports.
Yeah, so.
Okay,
That completes my report for now.
any other questions for Derek?
I do have a question on the special assessment districts, Commissioner. Just looking at the numbers, it seems, pretty reasonable. Hundreds of thousands of dollars is never reasonable, but so I was just curious, is that simply paving curbs and gutters, or does that include any infrastructure work? In other words, storm sewer grassroots. The reason why, in particular, because I travel it every single day, and I always think of it as the Veers house. You probably know where I'm talking about. There's a low spot there and catch basins, but I know for a fact there is no exits for those catch basins, and there is always water whenever we have rain, just south of the hospital on Howell Street. So I was curious. Number one is that that dollar figure that's been quoted, just curbs, gutters, and paving, or is there any infrastructure work in dealing with the storm sewers? And then, as a follow-up to that, I'm just curious because Morris Street and Linwood Street and Howell Street, we have a large nonprofit corporation there, and my understanding of special assessments is special assessment districts capture revenue from those private nonprofits. So my assumption would be that it was brought up and that, yes, the hospital would be contributing towards that special assessment director.
Right, so the discussion last night in the public hearing, I do not know the scope of the project. I do know that they are trying to address those water issues, okay? How they are going to address those water issues, I do not know. I do know that in the special assessment district. They were assessing each parcel in that district, and that the hospital was said to have 2.5 parcels. The half parcel, and it may even be slightly less than that, it might be a 25% parcel, that's a parking lot. And that, right, so that the 2 parcels and the 25% portion brought the hospital's portion to $13,000. And the cap per parcel was $5,000. That was part of the discussion. Now, if the actual cost of the project is such that the assessment is less, that could be the case. However, the anticipation was, through discussion last night, that the cost would be, of the assessment, would be $5,000 per parcel.
I know at Lake Diane, when they did that, and that was all private property there, with special assessment, the people who had corners, that there was a limit because it was based on the frontage on the road, and because of that, people who have corners, they have frontage on 2 roads.
Yes.
So there was a cap, so I'm glad that you did bring up the point that there is a cap on that, because they would have multiple.
And much of the discussion last night actually was about how to set those caps and how to set that assessment. Do you do square footage? You know, what's the fairest way? Are you dealing with corner lots? Are you dealing with a property that has the bulk of the traffic in the area? Are you dealing with property that had construction with heavy trucks that impacted those streets? So the discussion did revolve around how to more fairly set that assessment, and the decision was by staff and by council last night to determine the assessment by parcel with the cap of $5,000.
Thank you, appreciate that additional information.
Yeah.
Anything else for Doug? All right, thank you. 2223, and at the last meeting, Brad, you moved to table, and Brent seconded that, and with...
I would make a motion to take that up from the table.
Support.
Thank you. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Does the board wish me to reread it?
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah, you weren't there, so. Okay, 22-023 to the Honorable Board of Commissioners, we recommend that the revised County of Hillsdale Employee Handbook be adopted effective February 22nd, 22. We would have to probably update that date if we take this, or
Oh, today's
no,
February 22nd.
that date's already been changed, never mind.
I say that's
Also, the County of Hillsdale, the County of Hillsdale Employee Handbook will be posted on the Employee Navigator site, where all employees will be required to sign the acknowledgement and/or any revised handbook on an annual basis. Furthermore, this resolution repeals all previous versions of the county employee policy and procedure guidelines and/or employee handbooks as of today's date. Respectfully submitted. Do I have support?
No, you have support.
You already have
Support from the
support,
press.
because we've
Well,
already
that's right.
moved the motion.
Thank you. Now, Dave sent you all what I hope has corrected all your concerns that Kathy and Brent and whomever, I think everybody had one concern or another. It should be in your email. He sent that just prior to the meeting. I know there was a version 4 and a version 4.1, and so this one, he has got the pages to correspond with correctly. I believe the items of the 90 days were corrected. And correct me if I'm wrong, Brent, but I think your issue with the first or second paragraph was
Yes,
corrected
that
in
was
this
corrected.
latest version. So I think everything's been updated to meet the concerns.
So the only thing is that 401A plan, some clarification, to me, some clarification on that, but not that we can't adopt it and come back and correct it
It is a living document.
once we get some clarification on the 401A.
And to that point, I agree with your comment about, being able to do from day one. But I know Kathy and I spoke about this. How many have we had leave in less than 90 days just in the past year and a half? And so, just like medical insurance or any of the other benefits, there's that 90-day waiting period,
Well, for some employees, it's not 90 days.
Well, yeah, but that's elected and department heads, so, yeah. I mean, there's room for further clarification there. Maybe we make it 90 days for everybody. I mean, I'm okay with that too, but, that's a decision for this board to take. But was there any more concerns that haven't gotten addressed?
I was going to go back and look at the original language of the resolution. There was some discussion about electeds signing it as well as the employees. And did we clarify on that?
Well, if you go to page,
I think it was page 1, wasn't it?
well, it's page 1 of the actual document. After you get through that application of guidelines, that had been in 2 paragraphs. And in that, it had exempted elected, completely exempted elected, appointed, and chief deputies of elected or appointed. This language cleans that up a little bit, I think. Get this. That's the, it lays out that, certain departments may have, statute or other rules that are more strict than this, and those apply. All departments of the county are expected to follow the handbook stated rules if no other policy is in place that supersedes this document. So, and
The first sentence where it says that the County of Hillsdale Employee Handbook outlines the county's policies and expectations of county employees. If you're receiving a check, and I don't care if you're elected or who you are, if you're receiving a check, you're an employee of the county. I mean, that's my interpretation, and that's part of the, David and I kicked this language around because Brent wanted it to, and rightly so, it should encompass everybody. And so that's the language that I bring to you.
I'll say, if we want to pass something that is for the employees, we should be willing to subject ourselves to the same rules and guidelines. And again, I understand we're the legislative body in the county. County government's a little bit unique. You've got many other elected officials that their employer is not us per se, but it's the citizens of the county.
Right.
So I understand that unique circumstances there, but I'm willing to subject myself to the same rules as what we would ask our other electeds to do and our other department heads to do.
And to that point, we should all sign the acknowledgement sheet.
And that was the reason to bring up that point, that I do believe that we should sign that acknowledgement, that should be a requirement.
Yep. I agree 100%.
The other thing that I do want to, I have the floor is that electeds do have a kind of unique, so if we're going to, as far as that 401A or B or whatever,
Okay.
we do want to make sure that, especially with commissioners now moving to a 4-year term, one more term down the road, that they meet that vesting requirement. Because if it's 90 days in and you're 90 days, because our term of employment is regulated. In other words, we have a fixed term of employment. You know, we as commissioners are here for 2 years, barring resignation, death, you know, whatever. But we're here for 2 years. Eventually, after one more term, we'll be here for 4. All the other electeds are here for 4. We want to make sure, because it's like having a contract that has to be renewed, you know, so we want to make sure that we can make it possible for an elected official to serve 1 term, and those dollars that were paid in by the county, that they can be vested. So that is one thing that I wanted to make sure, that if we have it 90 days in for everybody, that we do understand that potentially that an elected official could serve 1 term and not be vested because it'd be short 90 days.
Actually, and then I would have to go back and read the 401A contract. I think the vesting deals with date of employment, not date of enrollment in the 401A.
Okay.
Or maybe, and that's maybe something that we can clarify in that discussion.
But I do think that's an important point of the overall discussion, and since we've talked about that as part of this handbook, that it really needs to be brought up.
It's a good question for,
Are you talking about rolling back the elected?
No, okay. So currently, if we say everybody has to be an employee 90 days before they can participate in the 401A.
Again, that's not what it says.
Okay, but it's not, but if.
And I don't think that's where it's gonna go.
But no,
because
what Commissioner Benzing,
I understand Commissioner Benjing's concerns. I'm more, my point is are you talking about changing when electeds can get into the plan?
no,
Okay.
no, what he's.
As long as that's no, I'm good. We can move
Well,
forward.
but he's saying if we go to everybody's at 90 days, so elections would be at 90 days.
We're not discussing that, and that's what I wanna make sure of.
Okay.
Okay.
I just, let's say,
I'm good, I understand what you're
Okay,
saying.
okay,
I just wanna
okay,
make sure
okay.
that we weren't discussing
Yeah,
about changing when
yeah,
electeds get in.
Because that was
Okay.
where he was going, is if we did do that, does that then change that?
Yes, I understand
Right.
his concern.
Right.
I get that.
Okay.
Okay.
yeah, because the vesting table, to Brad's point, on page 31 of the document, you're not fully vested until year 4.
right.
But that's on page 31 of the employee handbook. That's where I would want to fall back to see what is that, the 401A language say as far as, are you vested 4 years from date of employment, 4 years from date of enrollment in participation in the plan?
I'll find out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because when you talk to them about the
yeah.
tax situation.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other concerns other than that?
I was looking up 2 things and you guys were discussing some other things. I do know, in looking at the travel policy, that hasn't been changed. Are we gonna change that later?
The travel policy in the handbook
Yeah,
has not been changed to the
yeah.
actual travel policy language.
Because the thing I'm looking for is the travel policy of Hillsdale County makes a specific notation about 911 employees, and the reimbursement rate's a little bit different, and that is not in here. So are we gonna address that later? That would be the one thing I've looked at, and then the other thing, help me here, remember, what was our resolution on holiday pay and when it kicks in? it doesn't specifically say in here when holiday pay kicks in. And I know there's been discussion that holiday pay doesn't kick in right away for probationary employees.
That's my understanding. My understanding that as electeds get it right away.
Right.
Regular employees do not. They have to meet their probationary period, but I don't know if you guys did a resolution.
Holiday pay wouldn't apply to electeds because they're on salary, any salary employees, not going to apply to them.
Right.
So is that what our discussion was, is that it only applied to hourly employees, so therefore it's whatever the hourly employee,
Whatever the contract.
whatever the contract says? Okay.
Well,
so
but we have
that's-
some employees who are not covered by the contracts.
Well, they're hourly employees.
And I'm going to speak for myself. I'm a non-union employee, and I had to follow what the union contract said. So when I hired in, I had to meet that probationary period before I got any holiday pay.
So salaried employees get holidays right away. Is that also
Well,
true for department heads?
They're
I know they're salaried. Do they have to wait at all, or they?
Well, they don't get holiday pay because it's built in.
I understand that. I want, because I know for the 401A plan, I believe there's a 30-day waiting. Somewhere there was a 30-day waiting period for department heads and no waiting period for electeds. And I don't know if it was the 401A, if it was health insurance, maybe health insurance.
is-
So again, I just want to verify it. So I think that's probably what the discussion was on holiday pay, that it only applies to the hourly employees, and so we don't need to specifically set that on there. All right, thank you for reminding me of that. I couldn't remember. All right.
I will have Dave look at that and, because I know I sent him the travel policy. And if there's any hiccup with the language before we put this to final print, I'll have him correct that.
Well, and it does state there in that first paragraph as well on page 1.
Policies might supersede.
Official resolutions of policies adopted supersede this.
Yes,
Right,
I mean, I'm paraphrasing, I don't know what the specifics.
Yeah.
but you hit it close enough.
Yeah.
And to that point, those policies, before the end of the year, will be in a folder.
Yes.
Nikki and Dave have assured me they're gonna
Yes.
get that in a folder on the website, so you can just click on that folder and there's the policies.
There they are.
and
That would be
They're gonna break
nice.
them down into categories.
on the public county website,
Correct,
not just on the employee
correct. Correct.
website, so that all public can have that.
I will be using that. I have them, but man, sometimes to find them.
Right.
Anyway, I will mention, and I guess I need to touch base with Dave, I think the county policy, the bullet point for this 911 is in the wrong place. It needs to be moved down. So I don't want it actually in the same place as the county policy. So I'll have to talk to Dave on that.
Okay. Well, okay, well, I'll talk to him about that and see if, I thought we had corrected that to meet everything, but what's the specific bullet point that you need changed?
Do you have the county policy up?
I don't have a county travel policy, no.
Oh, this is what takes some time.
Well, if David's listening, maybe he could email a copy of that up.
I'm not trying to take some. Takes
I
me too much time to
thought
find
I
them.
had it right here handy, but I'm not finding it. Travel policy. Bingo, there it is. knew Jody had sent it to me at one point.
I know I have it, it's just a matter of finding it every time. All right. Anything get up? It's this, if central dispatch employees use the county vehicle, central dispatch will reimburse the county general fund at the cost of gasoline plus 30 cents per mile round trip per car. That bullet point should be after these.
Okay.
Because these bullet points do not refer to that.
Okay.
Okay, that's, because as I look at it, the way it's laid out, I think these refer to that and it doesn't.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. I can leave. I will get that moved then. All right.
And I don't know if we bring back that travel policy and make that amendment, or update that travel policy, the same thing.
So
So,
I think that's, like we've done with other things, it's kind of clerical.
okay, so we can just do it?
I think so.
All right, sounds like a plan to me. So I'll
And
have Dave
then
change
I'll
both.
send out the final version
Okay.
after he makes that, which
Yep.
is that, what I'm hearing is that's the only change I need to address right this minute. Correct?
Did the vacation time change to the resolution that was the most current resolution? That's what I was trying to figure out here just a minute ago.
Yeah, that one.
1 year.
Yeah, that one got
changed,
addressed.
okay. Because I didn't actually have a chance to look at what Dave sent. Okay, that's changed, then those were kind of my three things that I had on my hit list.
Okay. All right.
Or my concern list, there we go.
I will see him immediately
More
following
appropriate
this.
terminology.
Well, to keep rolling, since Brad's got a noon and I've got a 12:30. Any other comments, or are we ready to vote? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you one and all, and it is a working document. I do plan on bringing it back probably about before year's end, because we will have feedback once it gets disseminated. And when I, disseminate it to all the elected and department heads and all the personnel get to look at it, I'm sure we'll have feedback. So my full intent is to bring it back to you before the end of the year. So, moving along. The Ohio, Michigan, Indiana Council of Government had a Zoom meeting the other day. I've got a mailing list, which I haven't had time to really decipher, but part of that mailing list is getting out to people, and if there's people on that list that USGS has identified that they want access to well records, they have to get the homeowner's permission or the business owner's permission. So,
For updated well records, they can go on to the state website and get the
oh yeah,
the
they
well,
can
the well
get
sheet
those,
for every
right.
one that's been registered.
Right, but to actually monitor the water level within the well, they need the homeowner's permission. And that's what we're trying to do, is monitor those water levels within a well as they fluctuate throughout the season, or seasons. So I'm gonna try and break that apart in the upcoming days, and I'll send it out to, if there's any I can't figure out, I'll send them out to everybody. But, if there's homeowners within your district that we need to contact, I'll let you contact them. But we're at that point where USGS is, working more in Michigan than they're primarily focused in Ohio up to this point. The other thing I will say is the project with the fish farm in Pioneer is still under permit review. Actually, today is, I think, the last day to comment. You can comment on the Ohio DNR. It's ohiodnr.gov, and there's a tab that you click on to comment. The comment period, like I say, ends close of business today. They're supposed to issue their ruling, whether they're going to grant the permit, by March 14th. For what it's worth, I've put a comment on there that I think it's very irresponsible for Ohio DNR to allow a 3 to 5 million gallon a day withdrawal, since the aquifer impacts hundreds of local wells, and probably thousands of residents when you look at, you know, the 3 states and the 9 counties. So, I know they received a lot of comments, but I would encourage anyone and everyone to, you know, comment, because one of the other comments I made is we just don't have enough data on this aquifer right now to allow that type of withdrawal that is not going to go back into the ground, it's going to be dumped into the river. You
The
know?
waste
Yeah.
is going to be done.
No.
Well, it's supposed to be,
No.
It's
Clean water.
it's supposed to be clean water, but the point is it's not like an irrigation system that might be pumping 1 million gallons through the course of a summer, that the water goes back down eventually into the aquifer, or at least a percentage of it. This water will be, once it's purified, it'll be put in the river and it's pretty much gone. Now, that's debatable too, but that's my opinion on the water flow. But I still think it's bad business to be pulling that much water out of the
Well, last week
aquifer.
Thursday, if they'd have pumped 3 million gallon a day back into that river. 'cause
Pardon me?
Last Thursday, if they'd have tried to pump 3 million gallon a day back into that river, that 3 million would have gone back in, the vast majority of it would have gone back into the reservoir because it would have just pumped right back out of the river.
Right, it'd have made Matt's job even worse.
No, it's in Ohio. He
Well, that's true.
No,
When
it
they
will
come this-
make Matt's job worse because
I know
that water
the
will-
water can't get away.
will back up,
Still pretty close to Michigan though, where the
Yeah.
proposed outlet is.
that water will continue to back up the river even more than it is now.
So, anyways, it's an ongoing situation. But as far as an actual permit, we won't know until March 14th, but I guess I'm hopeful that there's enough negative comments that Ohio will take heed like they did in the previous venture of pumping water over to Toledo. So, moving along, medical care facility, Terry sent me a report. Weekly COVID-19 testing continues, and we currently have 0 resident cases at the facility. We have 0 staff cases as well, no employees off work related to the virus. Facility is holding a vaccination and booster clinic today for those staff requiring second dose of the vaccine and any residents awaiting a booster dose. February 27th of '22 is the deadline for those staff required to be fully vaccinated according to CMS vaccine mandate. The facility remains 100% compliant with CMS vaccine mandate. CDC and CMS are now defining someone as up to date with their vaccine only after receiving the booster shot. This is terminology changed from fully vaccinated. Someone who is fully vaccinated has received both doses of a 2-dose vaccine or the J&J vaccine. We are expecting updated mask guidance to be issued as soon as today from the CDC. However, we do not expect any changes to our guidance. Visiting does continue at the facility after a brief health screening. Face masks continue to be required throughout your visit, and rapid COVID-19 testing is available prior to any visit. Today, Hillsdale County's test positivity rate is 24.1%, and we are awaiting updated numbers from the state of Michigan today. It is expected that the positivity rate will continue to decline, with our 10% being our benchmark. And by that, he basically means a lot of the requirements as far as screening and masks would be dropped if they drop below 10%. And that's his report. I just wanted to make a couple comments on the Veterans Affairs Board. We lost Jim Weischer, or Dan Weischer, excuse me, stepped down, retired, however you want to phrase it. So we moved John Lowe up into the regular position. And we did acquire a new alternate. So we have 2 alternates and the 5 regular members. We did have 3, but Rachel Williams moved out of state. Her husband was reassigned in the DC area. I believe he's a lieutenant colonel, I believe, if I remember right. So she'll probably be back to the area at some point and rejoin the board, but for now they're out of state. But so that's kind of a brief update on that. I did sign the grant application that the judge and Laura talked about at our last meeting, because that is coming through the VA office. And so Renee had me sign that so we could continue that process to obtain that money for that program. So that's a quick update from that. We did have a policy meeting last week for Board of Health. Not a lot came out of that. It was something we're going to do more, is have the policy meetings on a more regular basis. We have the full board meeting this Thursday at 9 a.m. at the Branch County Commissioners Meeting Room in the courthouse. So that's all I have, unless there is a question. Because I've already addressed the group of investors. Any questions, comments? All right, thank you. I guess that brings us back to public comment. So, since we didn't read it earlier, I'll read the whole thing, which we talked about. A member of the public may address the board after receiving recognition from the chairperson and giving his or her name. Public comment shall be limited to a period set aside at each meeting for such purpose, and each speaker shall have the floor for no longer than 5 minutes unless the board grants an extension. And I may remind the public, the board does not engage during public comment. So, with that said, who would like to address the board at this time? Bob, you got anything for us? Go ahead, Carla.
Okay, so Carla Adams, thanks everybody for being here, and I did want to put in a special thing for Doug. At the last meeting, I guess I came off rather abrasive, but looking through my paperwork, I hope you understand why. We're talking about a lot of money, we're talking about a lot of lives, and we're talking about the livelihood of taxpayers making it to their job and maintaining this as their residents, not communist China. So Doug pulled me into a meeting and had a conversation, asked me what my problem was, and he told me, the day that I cannot face the public is the day I need to step down. I thought that was rather reasonable considering we all pay your salaries, so thank you, Doug, for that. Also been on the phone with Brad and Brent a few times trying to figure out what's going on with this ARPA money, how it's being used, if it's legal, if it's something that we should even be doing. But I did want to talk about, if the road commissioners have a quorum of 2, does the Board of Health also have a quorum? And as far as having an open discussion on the agenda, could we schedule that with the Board of Health as well? Because I do have a lot of paperwork I would like to talk about. The van being damaged, not being reported, criminal activity, grant writing, things of that nature, and as well as the FDA papers I have received and the HHS response. I'm not able to get any response through the health agency at all, which is why I presented my case to a detective. So I thank you all for being here. I know it's very time consuming, but it's very time consuming to us, and it's very important that we have our voice heard and that you're actually standing up for what we say. thank you for that.
Thank you. Bob's being a gentleman, Kelly.
I'll be quick. Not really, I have a whole page. So I'm Kelly Mapes, again. I thank you guys for what you do. I think I have a right sometimes to come across upset. I was a 29-year employee. I did good work for this community. So the first thing I'm going to bring to your attention based on that, Brent talked about resources. The best resource in Hillsdale County that we have is through Great Start Collaborative. Write it down. It is called the Community Resource Directory. It's amazing. It was a very long work in progress. I worked endlessly with it. They also have a very awesome Google group, so you can talk back and forth to each other, but it's always updated. A gal by the name of Stephanie Rathburn runs that. They mimicked it from St. Joseph County Resources. I would like to see that. I see on our agenda on the back where you kind of gave some line items of what's happening in our community. I'd love to see that because you never know when you need to know that. All right, it's very important. The Board of Commissioner meetings with the silent commissioners, my only struggle is I don't feel like I get the answers. I feel like I'm putting in a lot of time. I'm going to be at every single meeting. I've committed to that. I don't feel that I've gotten answers. I feel that would help with the repetitive questions. I think teamwork is key. I was upset today being singled out by Brent. And Brent, I like you, but I felt very singled out today. I'm also on a mental leave from being off 29 years. I have a pending lawsuit. So to be looked at and singled out, I'm doing my job now as a citizen. And I'm going to do my job as a citizen. If they drag me out of here, I'm still going to do it. That's how I feel. I want to feel safe and I want to feel valued when I come to these meetings. If you feel you need to move it to the courthouse for police involvement, such as Coldwater did, because those meetings also run very well, I feel. Then I would also like you to, I would like to see an nepotism, the family hiring. I'd like to see a policy for that that prevents relatives by blood or marriage from working in the same department or firm. I see in Hillsdale County that's very common. We used to carry that policy in the health department. It was very valuable. I think it's important that family doesn't work together. I think it's a definite conflict of interest, and I hear a lot of the same names and things taking place. I would love to see you institute that. And really, that's all I have to say. I just hope we can all be a team. That's my goal, right? That's how we'll make differences.
Thank you. Anyone else want to comment?
Nepotism, that's it.
Come on, Bob, I knew you had something for us. How are you today?
Good. How are you folks? I see
Doing
you guys
good.
are
Thank
really
you.
quite active. And what you still have that little horse, don't you?
Yes, sir, it's in the office.
Just in case I might find usage. First I wish Bob, Mr. Godfrey from the Road Commission would have stayed. I think that there's not just bad comments. There actually is a lot of comments, and that stems from almost every township I've been to, from Camden, Reading, and so on, to Somerset. It lacks a great deal of thought there with Bob saying there's just bad comments. It's not. There's really some horrendous things that taken on. MDOT, when they were proposing and did with US 12 to be cleaned up, or the main roads for MDOT, why aren't they getting them done, in a good timing? Jackson County is done by 6 o'clock in the morning. Out here, we might not see them until the very next day or by noon hour the next day. So, in question there is John Saunders put a lot of money, I want to say useless money, out here on called Concord Road. And the valuation, if you look at it, it cracked up, and he said they didn't have the, can't name they're called blocks of tar. They get melt, so they can spray into the cracks and stuff. And so nothing was cured when they came up and put that supposed tar bound or asphalt down on that, or what do you call the stone?
Chip and seal.
Chip and seal. Thank you. Thank you. So, it was really inadequate. And then to have him just using the truck to pretty much when he first came on board, John Saunders, using his, our truck, to go back home to Eaton Rapids and such, that became a controversial to take that sign off the truck and find usage with it as well. But other than that, it does concern me. I would hope that you guys may very well look in the future to having definitely the extra 2 people on this board. I don't think Mr. Leninger is out of line asking for another person being out there. There is a great deal of need because it's always 2 against 1 constantly. Now, how do we figure out if it's 2 against 2? There's going to be a, subject matter there too. 2 votes and 2 votes. It's just not going to work. But I think Mr. Leninger has taken a different course than what most of our people down there used to be doing, is watching the money. And I think he's doing that, and I want to say effectively, because I've listened to him talk as well as in Somerset, and I would support him, not to say that he knows that much about the road commission, but at least, he's in there, he's digging. I think it's a great thing to have somebody, anyway, that's been in the county level. But whatever is going to happen in the future, I hope that you'll look strongly to see if we can't, even on here, having someone from the road commission always addressing or coming up with something that we can, come and take a look at. Other than that, I'm limited. You guys have a good day.
Thanks, Bob. Anyone else for good yes?
Good morning.
Morning.
Donald Hernandez, a city resident of Hillsdale. Thank you for giving me this moment to speak. A lot of times we don't thank you for what you do. I think you're all doing one hell of a job. If I had my way, I could find something to pick on every single one of you about something, about if it's just, I don't like the color of the bottom of your shoes. About a month ago, I happened to flip on my computer. I was watching what I thought was a disgusting charades of public comment. I heard everything from the cries, the hates, to the light bulb moments. I am very glad you've moved ahead and took the bull by the horns and says, you know what, we are better than that. We can have discussions all we want, but we are much better than that. The point, I believe, with the city of Hillsdale, our honorable mayor, whenever he starts public comment, he says on the first public comment, it's about agenda items only. So if I have a problem with the handbook, I'm going to go after you. Or if I have a problem with, the lock on the gate at the sheriff's office, then there's a reason to. But I need to leave my agendas or things that I am passionate about. We should leave our agendas, things that we're passionate about, to the final comment. If you guys got too much important stuff, the last thing you need is somebody standing up here pounding their fist saying, I hate you, I'm not going to vote for you. It's not right. You talked, just today you probably talked about possibly 7, 8, 9 lawsuits that the county could experience if you didn't do the right thing. Thank you to all of you. The next thing is, this past Saturday night, I had the honor of going to the Dawn Theater for the opening. There were people there who a lot of people I hadn't seen for a long time, a lot of people that I've met, but they were all very interested in the very same things that concern us citizens of Hillsdale. You don't see them here. They're too busy working. They're too busy going to school, teaching school, running government, or professing their faiths. But every day, trust me, as I happened to do a month ago or so, got a chance to look at, we are concerned. We work hard. We work very hard for what we do. Obviously, the people who were there paid a lot of money for those tickets, could afford the tickets, and we're very supportive of the Dawn Theater. kudos. I didn't think it would sell out. It was packed. It was just a wonderful experience to be able to say I was part of something that probably your family's built or you went to as children. That I don't remember those things. I don't remember going to the Dawn when I was 12, 13 years old. I was not, I had other things going on in a different part of the country. So to walk in there, I see a venue that was hopefully my grandchildren, might be able to see it, or my new friends might be able to see it. It was just an honor to be able to go to that. The last thing is like I want to reiterate is, the first public comment should be about agenda items only. You're too busy. You don't need this. It's something that I would really hope that you pursue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I don't care if it was. I never said Katie.
Good morning, Glenn.
Morning, everyone.
Still morning for about 4 minutes.
Try to make it quick. The road commission is an interesting animal. I haven't found a lot of satisfaction in what they do. As far as coming to our township board meetings, I don't believe Mr. Parney's been there maybe once out of the last 15 months. Maybe Mr. Parney just needs to be recalled. That's come just to my head today. The quality of road repair that they're doing is not very good. Just go down to Card Road off of Hillsdale, head west, and you'll see the folly of their work. They are going from paver patch, that's all they do is paver patch, chip seal, and then they let it go for the whole winter where their blades are scraping that stuff off, and they don't never go to the top of the hill to the crest to stop. They stop halfway up and there's a seam there and the water and the ice get under that, and it's just a darn mess. And then they come back and fog seal it and they say, oh man, that's really good. No, it's not. It's not. If they would do half the roads and do it all in one season, the township would actually benefit from money spent. But the way it is now, I think it's phaser number, taser, something like that. And when they get done with that, the next year our scores go down. So where is the value in roads? I believe the value in roads is to pulverize the ones that aren't worth a crud, that don't have a base. Well, none of them have a base. That's the problem. Pulverizing limestone. I've got 3 roads in our township, 4, that are as good as any paved roads. You go out and look on Card Road between Faust and Steenberg, Card from Steenberg to Hillsdale, Huff Road to the Jefferson line. They're great. The limestone brightens up everything at night. You can see deer or anything else running across the road in front of you. And that's probably the way to go. And I suggested that at a meeting, and I caught all kinds of flack about that, but they say, well, we don't have enough trucks to do the roads. Hire more people. Oh, we can't go over 50 because our insurance will get screwed up. You work for us. They're not getting it done. We're going to try to get Gherkin to help us this year. They didn't have any projects. The road commission didn't have any roads for us to get done this year. So we're going to try to get a hold of Gherkin. They got 500 people that are willing to throw down the road and get it done right. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know. But no, I appreciate Bob being here, and I've always had a good relationship with him, because when he says he's going to do something for you, it gets done, unlike others. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Thank you, Glenn. Anyone else? Laura, you got any updates from the court you want to share?
Not today, thanks.
All right, thank you for coming. Additional business, Kathy.
I'm good, thank you.
Brad?
Had the opportunity Sunday and Monday to travel to West Virginia for West Virginia Citizens Defense League annual lobby day, but I wanted to share with Commissioner Leininger that it was the beginning of FFA week in West Virginia, and both the Speaker of the House of Delegates and another member are former FFA members. They had a number of FFA members there, and the state president was elevated to Speaker and did introduction. So that was very nice to see them there, that representation from the agricultural community, and very, very nice experience down there.
Additional business?
Just a couple of things here, and I'll try to be quick because I know Commissioner Bensing's got a meeting. Number one, somebody brought up during public comment a question about getting on the Board of Health agenda. The Board of Health bylaws on page 2, underneath Article 5, meetings number 2, does spell out the way that a member can request to the chairperson to be added to the Board of Health agenda. If somebody feels that I pointed them out directly, I didn't intend to point anybody out directly. I appreciate you coming to meetings, truly do. Truly appreciate everybody from the public that comes to our meetings. Mr. Hernandez brought up something that we had a discussion about 14 months ago. This body decided not to make that first public comment item strictly on the agenda only, and so we have discussed that. The last thing, and I'll try to get through this. The last 2 years have been tough on society. Segregation, isolation has caused a lot of mental health. Today is the anniversary of my brother's death. Unfortunately, on October 25th, 2017, took his own life. Suicide is never the option. For anybody in the public that's listening, if you're dealing with mental health issues, dealing with those thoughts that it would be best if it was all over, 800-273-TALK. Suicide Prevention Helpline. Please reach out. Talk to somebody.
To echo that, Veterans Helpline is also, the first time you call the VA, that's the first thing on the answering system before you punch in the extension. But it's a very, very real thing. Private citizens, veterans, etc. There's a lot of emotional, and there's help out there. So, Doug, additional business?
Yes, Hillsdale County Road Commission meets on Thursday at 10 o'clock. I would encourage the public to attend.
This week?
Yes.
How's the road?
At the Road Commission?
At the Road Commission building, yes. Offices, yes. Thank you.
Okay. I had something, but I lost track, so we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for coming.
Today? No.